I am the Animist and get disarranged.
Welcome to the Disarrangement, hosted by the two coolest cats around, Austin Blakely and Nick Branscombe. Prepare to get disarranged.
Come on, for what writes and undulates in your ears is not for the faint of heart. Behold, it is the Disarrangement with your host Austin Blakely here and co-host Nick Branscombe. How's it hanging, Nick?
Greetings, friends of Earth and beyond.
Welcome. We've got an awesome show for you today. But Nick, have you? I mean, we've all noticed that gas prices have went up. You know, at a brand new high. I think California hit like, $10 a gallon. But have you paid attention to like the air prices from the air compressors?
No.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. It cost me $2.50 last time I got air for my tires. Do you know why?
No.
Well, my assumption is it's probably inflation.
Nice. Wow, I really feel stupid that I didn't put that together,
Yeah, you should have known that was coming.
See, because like with these dad jokes, I always feel like I have to answer them right away. I can't take like a bunch of time. I think, I'm just not good at like coming up with answers on the spot.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the point. Is it's just kind of it's if I can put it in a way that it's not gonna be too obvious.
Yeah.
Then you don't catch on, but it's coming.
Right.
It's coming. But anyway, so regardless of stupid gas prices and if air really is that expensive, we do have an awesome guest today. We just chatted about this, and we can do. I think we should do it both ways. Okay, so we know him as Ethan. You're going to know him as the Animist. So it's one of those things where it's. I think when you were talking about it, it's if someone's looking you up, they're going to find you under the Animist. But we know you as Ethan.
Yeah.
But how you doing, man?
I'm good. How are you guys?
We're here. We're here.
I'm glad
for
we could
an
make
early
it work.
podcast.
Yeah.
Do what?
I'm glad we could make it work with the time change. I'm sorry about the move.
Yeah, this is our first time doing something like this. So, of course we're hoping things work out perfectly. I've never done this long of a thing through Zoom, so we'll see how this works. But if all else fails, we've got some fail safes, which is good. So,
Good.
But anyways, thanks for joining us this early too, because it's like. What, it's 12 o'clock?
It's like 12 o'clock on a Monday.
Yeah, we're doing an early cast. Typically, this is like a late night sort of thing.
Yeah.
But I kind of dig it, getting it out of the way and like enjoying my day this way is kind of interesting. So,
Yeah, I try not to do pretty much anything after like 6 o'clock, but it ends up happening.
Yeah.
But
that's
this worked
a
out.
smart move, honestly. After work hours, it's chill time.
Yeah.
But yeah, man. So, has there been anything you've been kind of getting into here lately, or anything new? Now, obviously, we know you as a. I guess I always saw you as a director / videographer type guy, but you do so much. So, is there anything new to the things?
Yeah.
Or?
Yeah. And this, I hope it doesn't disturb the entire kind of direction for the show might have gone, but I've been shooting music videos for the past 6 years. You could say like directing, producing, and doing the video part. And then this past Christmas, I've been animating for a couple years. And this past Christmas, I was just like, you know what? I want to stop shooting music videos. So
Wow.
the company's actually shifting to completely be an animation and special effects studio.
So cool.
Yeah, it's been fun, and it just slowly kind of worked out where, like, if I tried to do this last year, it would have been, difficult financially and difficult in just about every other way, but it just kind of lined up where this is the way everything was going. And something we can talk about later, too, is, like, there's actually a friend of mine, we're actually starting in talks about starting a third studio that'll be, like, specifically for, like virtual special effects.
That's awesome. So basically, obviously getting out of the shooting of music videos, that doesn't mean you'd necessarily like decline editing or special effects towards one or something like that.
Yeah, and like I did a job recently, actually like last week. It's a commercial that features a Carolina Panther, and
hell yeah.
the job came to me as they wanted me to kind of direct it and film it and do the special effects, and I was like, this is too big of a job, so I hired my own director. So it's weird. It's like I directed it before you film it, and then you direct it after you film it. But during the filming, I hired somebody to come on set and deal with actors and deal with crew. So like it's gotten to the point now where I'll just like hire like 5 people to just kind of do the job for me, and I just kind of manage.
You manage it, yeah, because you know how it works. I mean, that's a great way to do things, and you know you don't really have to put everything that your whole self into it. You get super lost in it, and because you're definitely when it comes to that sort of thing, you're the man. Like you literally are like, and I know you're laughing, but like you're the whole package, man. You've got a vision when you do that sort of stuff. So even I'm sure even in managing people, like you're still getting your same vision out, you know.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I mean, like if you try to do too many things at once, you're not going to do any of them very well. So if you can just do like one thing, like you can do it the best. And I noticed that for the past few years too, is that like most of my projects were like I'm doing 70% just because there's too much in my head, or I have to financially, from a financial aspect, it's like, all right, I need 5 jobs a month. Otherwise I can't really survive. So then that makes you divide your attention more and more. And I'm just trying to get to the point where like, I enjoy my life outside of work, but at the same time, I enjoy my work because I do a good job.
Exactly.
What you talked about directing something for a Carolina Panther. Do you know which one it was?
Yeah, his name's Roderick Byers. He was a Clemson defensive line, and he was a Panther in 2018, and unfortunately he got injured like the first couple games.
Okay, I was about to say, the name doesn't actually sound familiar. As big of a Panthers fan as I am.
You might. My dad knew who he was, and my dad's a big football fan. But like, you know, for someone to have played a couple games, 4 years ago, it's like people have recognized his name a good bit.
Yeah, well, that's cool. Still, though, like absolutely.
Yeah, it almost sounds like maybe he was more popular as a Clemson player. Maybe.
Oh yeah, he was like the top. Clemson, whatever. I watch hockey whenever the cup's on, and that's about as far as I get in sports.
I just started getting into hockey because I went to last season. I went to a Thunderbirds game, which is a very, kind of.
Is that minor league?
Yeah, very minor league hockey, but I had a great time. I had a great time at that game, and I was just like, oh, I kind of see why people like this. It's not as great on TV, but then when you go and you experience it live, like I'm like, okay, I get it.
Yeah. Well, and the minor league teams are pretty good. Like the one in Charlotte is the Checkers, and they, for a long time, they were the Hurricanes pretty much like backup essentially. And the great thing about the minor league teams in Charlotte is like they're all good. It's like if you go see a Panthers game, you might see a shitty game. But if you go to like a Checkers game, it's like, dude, they're going to whoop whoever came in the door. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I think we had the Thunderbirds, and they did make it to a playoff. But of course, the game I saw was the first game of the playoffs. So they were up against some New York team that was like tremendously better. Tremendously better. And if it tells you anything, we just weren't getting any shots in. Like they were just playing defense the entire game. Like just trying to stay alive and not have a. I think when it came to the shot ratio, I think the whole game we took like 24 shots and they took like 80 some. And it was just like they were just defense the entire game. But yeah, that's really cool though, getting into just animation in general, because I haven't seen probably any of your real large projects, but I've seen like small things that you've put on Instagram and stuff like that have just been real cool. It's kind of like it almost looked like you were kind of messing with ideas.
Yeah, honestly, pretty much anything you have seen is probably was stuff I did for fun. Because kind of a model that I always do is do something really cool for free, then show it to the next person and charge them an ungodly amount for it.
An ungodly amount of money for it.
Great.
And so, like, actually, all the cool stuff I've done since the Switch, I haven't been able to post because it's either, like, still being worked on or it's getting released. But hopefully, I'm thinking in the next week or two, I'm going to, like, drop, like, 2 of the biggest things, and then it'll just kind of... Everybody will finally understand what you're doing, you know?
Yeah. So really, it's not necessarily that you haven't been doing any sort of the kind of, actual, camera action. It's more of that you've kind of taken a lot of those jobs and, turned it into a case where you're getting people you trust to help you with those projects so you can focus on what you really enjoy doing.
Yeah. And occasionally, like, I don't know if y'all saw, but I actually won an award for the best music video in South Carolina last year.
I saw that.
Yeah.
I was going to bring that up.
The guys who I won that with, they want me to film again soon. And, I don't know if they'll listen to this episode, but, it's something where I'm on the fence about. It's like, you win an accolade like that, and then I'm shifting. It's like, do you turn them down? It's like, I don't want to turn them down, but at the same time, I want to...
Don't know what you want to do with it.
Yeah, so there's stuff like that where it's like, clients like you guys that I'm like close with. Yeah. If they're like, hey, we'd like to do something again, it's like, I'd find a way for it to like fit. I don't like just turning stuff down. But if I've never worked with somebody, like somebody comes up to me and they're like, hey, I need a music video. This is what I'm looking for. Like, there's a good chance. No new friends. No new friends is what my friend says.
No new friends.
Yeah.
The music video that you did for that won you the award. What band was it for?
Quality Time. They're like pop punk out of Greenville.
Okay.
Yeah, I wasn't super familiar with the band, but I went and watched the video, and I was like, okay, I get it. It was pretty cool, man. Like,
yeah.
And also too, like, not that anything we've gotten from you, because obviously you shot pretty much all of the Norm videos. And anything we got from you always seemed like the best quality. Like, it was just so good. But you can really see in your work, like, how far it was going. I don't know if you, like you were saying, no new friends as far as, new videos or anything. But, do you think you've kind of peaked that, especially with like a video like that? Or is it just going to keep getting better?
You mean like visual quality or like...
Yeah, well, I mean, just all in all, just like stuff that you do, like, because obviously bigger. We've seen a quality difference between the videos, but we thought the first one was as good as it gets. And then
honestly,
I keep one-upping yourself.
I like the first one a lot. Like out of everything we did, the first one always, like, I go back to it and I'm like, we nailed it on that one.
Yeah, that turned out, that could have been an absolute disaster, but it turned out to be freaking awesome. So just to give y'all some context on what we asked of this man. So obviously we had one vision on the performance. Pretty simple, pretty simple idea, black backdrop, cool lights, let it roll. So then we asked him to basically videotape a party, and there was a real party going on, and he did it. I kept having to tell him like don't be afraid to yell at people, like don't get them out of the way, make them do what you want.
I felt bad too because like this was at my house at the time, and not like an incredibly small house, but I mean, if you start piling a bunch of people in there, it can get a little tight, so Ethan's like maneuvering through all these tight spaces and stuff like that, and but complete professional though about it, like still had a vision with everything going on, all the chaos that was going on, and I mean, yeah, turned out freaking, 10,000 times more than like what we could have expected.
Yeah,
so.
It was one of those things where it was just like I was just waiting for a disaster to happen. I'm like, there's all these drunk people, they're partying, and he's got a very expensive camera. I was just waiting for something to happen. But But yeah, I think you're right as far as story is concerned. That's probably the best video we have done. Well, and actually visually too, because you did a lot of cool stuff with the windows and stuff too.
Yeah, the upside, and as you were talking about it, and I was rethinking about the video, I just realized we were kind of doing a whole like Stranger Things upside down kind of thing, because like he'd be in the kitchen, the party's going on, and then something click, and he's by himself, and it's dark, and I'm like, that's just like the upside down. But that's those sequences were really cool.
Was that before Stranger Things?
I want to say that was probably 4 or 5 years ago.
It's been a while.
Yeah,
so,
it could have been. It could have been more.
I think I said on the last episode we filmed it in 2018. So that Stranger Things I think came out like maybe a couple years before that.
Okay.
Maybe it did. So, yeah. I for some reason, part of me thinks I don't think I started Stranger Things when everybody else did, because I feel like I started it like 4 or 5 years ago.
I still haven't watched it.
I haven't. I've watched like one episode.
So I'm up to date, and then 2 weeks ago I was like, let me just restart the whole thing because I'm missing some pieces, and I've already like rewatched the entire series in like 2 weeks.
That's how it goes, man.
That's how they get you.
That's how it happens.
They drag you in.
I mean, I was telling my wife, it's the only show that across like 4 or 5 seasons, the tone, the vibe, the feel, the like entertainment value, it is consistent. Like, most shows it's like, oh, that was a bad season, this is a good season. Yeah. It's not that case in any way.
It's just always good.
Yeah, it's probably the best show of the past few years, in my opinion.
That's awesome. I need to watch that, and it keeps coming up on my Netflix feed. Like, it's basically like, please watch me.
Please watch me.
Please watch me. Yeah.
Especially if you like the horror sci-fi stuff.
Well, I like sci-fi for sure. I go both ways with horror stuff, but I'm surprised Steph hasn't gotten me to watching it yet, just because like my girlfriend's a horror fiend. Like, she just will pick a day and just watch like 6-7 horror films. And I've never been one to do that. Like, I can watch a scary movie and be like, that was a good movie, but I'm not like one that's like, on Halloween, let's watch 100 horror movies or anything like that. So I think Stranger Things, that's probably why it didn't like grab my attention too much, is just because I was just like, scary and kids, I'll watch it eventually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that something like, say, a big show like that, because I know you're talking about only wanting to do animation anymore, but I would imagine though, like, say some big, show producer or something maybe saw your work online and wanted to bring you aboard onto like the set or something for like a big time show. Like, I mean, would you, I'm assuming you would do it, but I guess maybe it just kind of depends on where your head would be at, but it's hard to turn down big opportunities like that, I would assume, though.
Yeah. I actually am kind of in the middle of something like that happening. And I'm not like, I haven't signed anything. It's just more or less like
signed nothing yet.
for the decade or so that I was like bouncing around between like day job, unemployed, or like starting this up. I've always had like opportunities come to me, and I talk about them way too soon, and then it just jinxes it. But something like that may or may not be in the works. But it's on jobs like that or projects like that. Like, there's so many people involved, let alone on like the set side, the post-production side. There's so many people involved, and a lot of it's like contracts with certain studios and stuff. So, I'm talking to people that like are in that world, and if you get in that world, like, you become a little gear. So it's not like, it wouldn't be one of those things where you get a bunch of decisions to make or like any kind of creative choices. You're almost like an engineer.
Right.
So it's like the guys who like wrote the show and created the show, it's like they have this vision, and this vision will not be touched. But then you become like an engineer on the line, where they're like, we need you to do this, this, and this throughout this season. And you'd pretty much be like a technician or engineer on that stuff. And I'm definitely interested in doing that. It's just, I've always felt insecure whenever I work on like bigger projects, whether I was like working as a light tech on set, someone else's set, or filming, or even if I was to do like a big 3D thing for a big project like that, I always get really insecure. It's like, I know what I can do, and I know what I'm good at, but then you get around people who are like the best of the best, and you're like, I don't think I belong here, you know what I mean? And they could look at you and be like, no, I saw you, you're fine, you can do what we need you to do. but in the back of my mind, I'm like, I'm like, I somehow scammed my way here.
That's well, as musicians, sometimes we feel this way too. Especially when you see like a 10-year-old doing what you've been doing for the last 4 years, you know?
Yeah.
So it's, yeah, I can definitely get that, you know, just with the, it's maybe not necessarily insecure in what you're doing or what you have been doing, but just like almost that you're standing near that person or doing something with that person, and you're just almost like, I don't know if I'm worthy of this yet. I may have jumped a couple levels before I got here or something. That sort of thing. Like,
one too, like, you know, when it comes to a skill set, just like, you know, being a musician is like, sometimes you think, oh, if you're going to be at this level, you have to know all this stuff. And that seems to not be the case, but it's just, I would like it to not be the case as frequently. And what I mean by that is, you know, these people, they understand you don't know everything and like mistakes happen or whatever. But it's more or less like every time I talk to people who are like on these upper, you know, these high levels that I aspire to get to, they're always like, dude, just ask questions. Like, you don't have to know everything. It's just like, well, then why are you paying me? Like, why would I be here? And why would you be paying me if I'm still like having to ask everything just about, you know what I mean? But
yeah.
Well, I'm sure there's with any kind of industry, there's you know, some kind of learning curve. You know, I guess you could be, you know, incredibly educated on something, but then you just kind of get into a world that you haven't been in before, and just still feel like you're lost. You know, so I mean, I think that, you know, you feeling that way is normal, and I just feel like any industry you go into that's not been at the same exact thing or same level as what you were doing before, I guess there's always going to be areas where you're going to have questions and stuff like that. You know, I think that's just kind of like the circle of life in general. So
yeah, you probably should. I mean, and that's I guess the whole thing with the, you know, people are like, no, we want someone with experience. Like, I think when you get told that, it's so you're asking less questions essentially. But at the same time, if you're doing something, you know, like in a big project like that, you know, and especially with, like you're saying, contracted workers. So it's not even necessarily like, you know, everybody's under the same studio, you know, and have been doing this with each other for 8-9 years and know what to expect of each other. You know, you've got people that are just now meeting, you know, and just now figuring out how to work together, I guess.
Well, and a big part of it too is leverage. Like, you can probably find in y'all's town or even any towns close by, you can probably find hundreds or thousands of kids that can film a video, and a lot of them probably do it really well. But when it comes to like the VFX and the 3D type stuff, it's like it's a slim pickings essentially.
Yeah.
So
That's
to
hard
those
stuff,
big,
man.
yeah, it's hard to get into, and it's hard to like kind of progress because it's like unless you're doing it at night when you have a regular job, and at that point then it shuts down how many hours you can actually do a week to like get better and better.
Yeah.
So it's just, there is that leverage where it's like no one else knows how to do this, so you kind of know how to do it, so we'll take it.
Right.
That sort of thing. Well, and that's the only way you're going to get better too, is taking those opportunities and someone going, hey, I've got a vision of this and it's got to be exactly like this, and you're going, I've never been asked of that, you know, and then you get to figure out how to make that happen, you know, which creates a whole new, you know, a whole new repertoire, a whole new tool for you essentially. So in a way, they're paying you in multiple ways.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's really cool though, that, you know, with you know, your experience in all of it though, the animation side is kind of the thing that holds you there, you know. Because I just kind of saw you more as like, you're just kind of, again, a jack of all trades kind of thing. Like, you could do, you know, lighting design, you can do direction, you can, you know, you've got camera skills for days, you know. But with the animating and like seeing you start to do commercials and stuff like that too, I was like, he's he's really getting his feet wet now. Like,
Did,
Well, and go ahead, Nick.
No, I was just gonna say right quick. I was gonna ask you, was animation, kind of always your goal when you kind of got into this world, or was it like, you kind of did both of them, like the regular camera work and animation, and then you just kind of found out which one you enjoyed doing more?
Well, I guess it's pretty serendipitous because what I was about to say was I've been doing all of this since I can remember. Like, I don't really remember anything before 6. And I would say 7, 8, 9, 10, I was like always into like drawing. And the drawing became like, I got into like making comic books and those flip books, like cartoons and stuff like that.
Right.
And then I guess with technology, I stumbled onto like a camcorder and I started making like little videos with my friends. So it was like, whatever it was, is I was always had like something in my head and I wanted to get it in front of me so I could look at it. And I did that as a kid a lot. So, and then I started filming, I guess, at 14, but didn't really do anything seriously with it until I was almost like 20. So it's always been kind of back and forth of like visual art and video. I never did photos, and I often get called a photographer. Like my wife's friends will be like, "Oh, are you taking photos today?" I'm like, "I'm going to murder you. Like, please don't ever call me that."
I'm not a photographer.
Yeah.
Well, Nick's kind of gotten into that sort of stuff here recently.
Yeah,
so I guess you would have some experience even in videography. I don't know nothing.
Well, I'm kind of late to the party, I think, essentially, like, because I actually, like he just said, I used to do the same thing when I was like in middle school and stuff. I used to make, these little funny home videos with my friends. Well, even before then, like me, I have a younger sister, and like we had this old RCA like home camcorder or whatever. It was like, black, and it had like the pull out, I guess you call it the thing you look through.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so it like flipped over, so you would like look in it with one eye, and that was from like probably 1990 or something, but this was like 2006, somewhere around there. And me and my younger sister, we'd be in my room and we would use this old freaking video camera, and we would just film these little skits, and I'd call it like Crazy Adventures in Nick's Room or something like that. But then my parents got me this little small digital video camera for Christmas one year. And so I started making a bunch of videos with my friends and everything. But then, music kind of like took over pretty much, and so, I always sort of still did video stuff occasionally. And of course, I've had a YouTube channel for a long time. So, I've always kind of done stuff with that, but it wasn't until recently that I seriously started getting into more like photography, and I do like jingles for businesses or promotional videos. But like if it's a jingle, a lot of times the business that's hiring me is going to want a video with it too. So I'm kind of just getting my feet wet into more real serious like video production, and I'm obviously nowhere near where I want to be, but so yeah, I'm a little late, but kind of like you though, I sort of did kind of start around that time, just messing with making videos with friends and stuff like that. So definitely see where you're coming from on that one.
Yeah. And I'd say the thing that translates over the most from like making him as a younger person, like really young, is because like the actual like technical skill of operating a camera like doesn't really translate over from a 12-year-old to being 25 or 30. But the ability to kind of just like get a group of people together, tell them what you're thinking, and then like put it together, even though it might not be remotely what you originally started out with. It's like that kind of like skill building for a kid, like you, Nick, and like me. It's like that's a good skill and kind of leadership value to kind of you've had it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
right.
It's not like you're just starting out at 25. I'm like, all right, how do I get people together and plan something? You know what I mean?
And I learned all about like just basic video editing and stuff at a really young age, because, well, just going back to the YouTube thing, I've had my YouTube channel since I was, 12 or 13. And so I kind of had to learn how to do at least some basic editing, to kind of get the videos on YouTube. So that I started was really young, but, now I use like, Premiere Pro and stuff, and there's like so many and I'm sure there's even, you know, bigger and better video editing softwares than that, you know. But with this one, I mean, and same thing with Blakely too. You know, he edits all these podcasts and stuff, and he's doing like some actually kind of like an animation for a song of mine that's coming up soon. So he's kind of knows that world too a little bit.
I'm working on it a little bit. My animations are very minor. Nothing compared to what you're doing, man.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen, like Blakely said, I've seen your, you know, like your Instagram posts and stuff, and yeah, it just looks crazy good. So
yeah, I'm almost curious, you know, because we've talked about, you know, the things you did for fun. You know, is that here's a thing for fun, so I can show somebody I can do something to make money off of. Okay, so that fun thing, how long does it take you to do that sort of in detail animation? Because you're straight up like it's super 3D. There's a lot going on.
Anything that you've seen probably from this past year, like, was probably done in less than a day. Stuff that I might have been putting out like a year or two ago would probably take like a few weeks.
Okay.
And I would just like see like an art style, like I said, I was really big into like comic books at a younger age, and just like different, like really drastic art styles. And so I'll just like find an art style on like Pinterest or where else do I go? I can't remember. But I'll just see something really cool. I'm like, oh, I should make that move. And so I'll just take I'll try to recreate a similar art style. And a lot of times I'll do that because, you know, between like 2020 and even before then, if I don't have an open job for a week, I don't sit around or go play basketball or go to the movies. I generally just take that time to be like, all right, let's learn something new that I can make money off of.
That's awesome. Well, that's a good way to be too, because you know you got to invest some time into your craft to evolve, you know, to get better. So, and with doing that sort of stuff, I'm just, you know, this is you don't have to give me all your detailed secrets. I'm just curious. Do you use like kind of multiple softwares to kind of do what you want to do? So
yeah, I mainly use Cinema 4D and After Effects. After Effects is for like 2D stuff, so like cartoon stuff or like words and colors and shapes. And Cinema 4D is pretty much anything 3D related. You can do like fake 2D stuff in there too, but those are the two main ones that I use.
Yeah, I don't think I've heard of Cinema 4D, but I've heard of After Effects before.
Yeah, they kind of link together a little bit, but they're different companies. But yeah, and then I use for video stuff I use DaVinci.
Really?
Which for any of your listeners, DaVinci is free, but it's also industry standard. So
that's very interesting because I use DaVinci too.
And that's
yeah,
what
DaVinci's
I was
the best,
that's what I
dude.
was using before I kind of switched over to Premiere Pro.
Premiere Pro is still what everybody uses. I've become a DaVinci fanboy. So.
I kind of like it. It was one of those things where it was hard for me to look at first. Like it was like I pulled it up and it was very intimidating. And then as I've been using it, like I'm getting more comfortable with it. You know.
Yeah.
It's
not, basic.
Yeah, exactly. There's not. I thought it was intimidating, but there's really it's only if you make it. You know, you ain't got to use everything in it. Just take time to learn what this thing does. Or this thing.
Well, and I feel like a lot of the times, you know, videographers won't use everything that's in it. You know, it's like it's almost like when we were talking on the last pod episode about like guitar modelers and stuff like that. Like, you know, a lot of
that's going to come out after this one, I guess.
Right. Yeah. But a lot of guitar
secret
players,
episode coming to you.
a lot of guitar players aren't going to use every single thing in those modelers, you know. So I almost feel like it's maybe the same way with like the video editing softwares and stuff like that too, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of the stuff I'm doing is still in DaVinci. So maybe that's what I need to do. Maybe I need to branch out to a different, because I'm kind of creating like false animation. That's kind of what I'm doing. I'm using I'm basically creating images. Like I'm like using a software to create images, and then I'm using those images in DaVinci to kind of create an animation, if you will. It's almost kind of flipbook style.
I was about to say, it sounds like a flip book, but just virtually.
Yeah, kinda. It's that sort of thing.
I mean, still, that's technically animation.
And I was about to say, that's essentially what animation is, right?
Yeah, by textbook, yeah.
Yeah, but it's just I guess I just do that because, well, one, I'm using free softwares too, but at the eventually I hope to get to a point where I'm the hobby is paying for itself to where I can pay for DaVinci or something like that, and maybe get my feet wet into Photoshop or something. But I'm actually just using GIMP for all my photo edit, and I like GIMP a lot. I've had a lot of good success with GIMP, which I think I'm better at creating. Like I guess I'm better as a graphic designer. I feel I'm not amazing, but I feel like I have a lot more experience in GIMP than I do in DaVinci. So I'm basically creating images that I want to be in an animation. Because you can't just find them or in some cases I could take a picture and use that picture to do something. But yeah, so it's a lot of it's like just kind of creating it and then figuring out using the software to kind of make something work the way I want it to, I guess.
Yeah. Have you ever heard of Procreate?
No, I've never heard of it.
It's a software on an iPad, and my brother uses it, and it's like there's a learning curve because I've played with it, but like if you kind of just sit there and like teach yourself, and it's not that in depth, but like you teach it yourself to it. Is like he was showing me stuff. He's never like really been extremely visually artistic. He's a guitar player too.
Okay.
But he just showed me some stuff he did. I'm like, dude, there's no way you did this. Like I've been drawing for 15 years, and like you just did this instantly. So, but and I believe there's a function on there where you can retake the pieces and animate them like within the app.
That is cool. Insane.
Yeah.
So, and that's just a kind of a strictly an iPad or Apple sort of thing.
You might be able to get it on like an Android tablet or maybe a computer. I'm not too sure, but I know for sure it is on iPad.
I'll see if it's on the Play Store because I have an Android.
Yeah, we thought about because me and obviously this video we're doing for Nick is something I needed some help with because I do have some drawing skill, but a lot of the time my artistic like drawing skill is one. It's very one dimensional. It's a one trick pony. I can only draw like I can draw, basically. I've got my own style and I can't venture out of it. I've tried. But my girlfriend Steph is a lot more versatile, I would say, with her drawing. She even got one of these pads here. She did a lot of the drawing for it, which wasn't too much. I didn't have to, but she's got one of these, what is it called? A Wacom?
Yeah,
pad.
Wacom.
So she's just now gotten to the point to where she's like not necessarily drawing on paper all the time. She can kind of load up the computer and create something. But I had her do the images for that. So we've kind of in tandem kind of taken this project on together. And but we thought about getting like a Microsoft Surface or something to be easier for her to kind of just draw in her free time. She doesn't have to be stuck here at the desk. She can, she's becoming a teacher. So in her off time at school or something, she could draw during lunch or whatever. We've thought about doing that, but we've very much a PC household versus the Apples.
Yeah.
Not I don't have anything against Mac or anything. It's mostly has to do with money.
No, PCs are better in every way. Sorry.
Well, you can just I feel like I have more control. Like both of our PCs I built,
Yeah.
It's stuff like that. I just got to have a little more control in every sort of way. If the thing I'm struggling with here lately is just how burdening Windows can be sometimes. Windows likes to make sure you have anything and everything that they have, But
well,
I've tried to stop Windows updates for a long time, and they're making it impossible
Well,
to do that.
I'll tell you. Here's a cool thing I found, and I'll have to send this to you. I found it's a what do they call it? It's a
Firewall?
it's not a firewall. It's it's basically a DAW run. It's like basically code, but someone created a debloater, and I tried it and it works. So like the cool thing, I was worried obviously about there being viruses or something like that, so I had to put it through some testing first. But when I used it, like you can get rid of OneDrive completely. You can just take all the bloatware out of it. Now the only problem that arises with that is that you have to do it kind of frequently because Windows likes to update.
Yeah.
You know, so you catch yourself doing it every now and then. But it's easy to run. You know, so it just kind of helps that sort of stuff. So, and I think with Mac, you can't really do stuff like that. There may not be a need with Mac.
Well, I think there's people that can do it, but it's less easy.
Yeah, there's more to it.
I use a MacBook Pro, and I've never really had to worry about like any, viruses or anything. I think it's a lot harder to catch one on a an Apple product or something like that.
Mac's just not quite as bloated. Like Windows just likes to just keep downloading shit.
Yeah. Well, I think the whole differentiation between the two is one is open source and one's not.
Yeah.
And I'd rather it's like if I own it, let me do whatever I want to it,
Exactly.
Right.
That's kind of why I like Windows. But at the same time, I can see like especially here soon, me and Nick's got a project going on that's more of a studio project, so we're kind of getting our hands wet in actual recording, and I can definitely see where like a Mac would make sense for audio recording. Like it seems like that because Windows is just finicky with those sort of things, even in software. Not that you can't, we do all of our audio here through PC, but I feel like I feel like I had to force a lot of this to work. I've had to, and I like that I have the ability to do that. But at the same time, I feel like just the common person that would want to start a podcast would do much better with a MacBook or just using their iPhone or something like that. It would be a lot easier.
Yeah. I've been in a lot of audio recording studios and every single one had a Mac, and I've been in a lot of like video production studios, and it's kind of a little bit of everything. But in every audio engineer that's a serious audio engineer that I've ever met, it was a Mac.
Yeah. I wanted to say right quick too that they don't. Procreate is not on the Play Store. The first thing that pops up is Adobe Express graphic design. So I don't know if that's like the same thing or
it might be
or whatever. But I did want to ask you too, not to get like too totally off topic between Mac versus PC, but
that's an interesting conversation.
Just going back to animation. I was like randomly thinking about this not too long ago. I think I was at my girlfriend's house and we were watching like some of the old Scooby-Doo episodes, like from the 60s, or even go back to the 40s or 30s with Snow White. Some of the very original animations. And I wonder if you have, you probably have more knowledge on this than I do, Ethan. But so I just kind of wonder how all that worked, like back in the day. So like, what did they do? Did they just legit take like a physical, like, flip book and just draw out every single frame and then flip it? And okay,
so pretty much like you remember back in the day, probably how old are you guys?
I'm 29.
I'm 27.
Okay, we're about the same age. So like in middle school, they would have those transparencies, and that's how they would put stuff up on the wall.
Yes, like an overhead projector.
Yeah. So basically, those transparencies, you would have the artist draw the subject or any props on those, and then the backgrounds would just be a painting that someone did. And basically, you would have a light box, which is basically a box that emits light, and you would put the background on it, and then you would put the transparency of like that frame of whatever the subject is. So that would be like Cinderella and a bird or something like that. And then there's a camera that would take a photo of that and you would do that 24 times per second or 12, depending on what rate they were using.
Wow,
And basically, a lot of the times the background, it would be long. So it'd be a long sheet. So you would just move the background to the side. If they were walking sideways, you'd move the background to the side and then just get the next frame transparency and put it on top of the background. So, and if you can pay attention to like watching those old cartoons, because I'm a huge vintage cartoon junkie. You'll notice sometimes, like, let's say they opened a doorknob on a door. Before they go for the doorknob's like low contrast. It fits in with the background. And then as soon as they go to touch it, the doorknob has more contrast. And you can tell you're now looking at the transparencies drawing kind rather than the actual background. Yeah.
That's cool. That's something that's always like fascinated me. And I'm sure that nowadays, it's done completely differently, I'm sure. But
yeah, 2D's like that. It's on that Wacom tablet. If you see 2D these days, it's all digital drawings.
Digital. Yeah, I think something like that tablet blew my mind. That was actually suggested to her by my buddy Matt, that I'm really close with. Went to elementary school together and all through school. His little sister was always drawing. Like that girl, she's probably 23 now, but she was always drawing. And it was mostly like Sonic the Hedgehog stuff. Sonic the Hedgehog, she drew a lot of Pokemon, stuff like that. So she had books everywhere. And then she moved in with Matt because she was going to UNCG, and Matt lives in Greensboro. And so she lived with him for a little bit, and she had one of those. And we always saw it like on the side table, like the little pen and everything. We always saw it sitting there, and we were always like, "What the hell is that?" Like, and one day she just asked her, and she was like, "Oh, that's my tablet. I don't really draw on paper anymore. I do everything through my computer." And Steph was like, "I want one of those." So we made it happen. But that I can see where that would make life a whole lot easier versus trying to, take those transparencies. Speaking of transparencies, that's the only way I knew. I actually knew they used transparencies, but the only way I knew is my buddy Cody goes to a lot of conventions, and he got a original overlay of Dr. Robotnik for like dirt cheap from the Sonic. I can't remember what it was called.
Oh, yeah.
Sonic Adventures. It was the one where he was like heavily eating chili dogs. It was the ones where it was like, kids, it's a no-no to touch people in their places, and like it was that one. It was that cartoon, whatever.
I don't remember that.
No, it said so. Oh, if someone tries to touch you between the legs, that's a no-no or something like that.
They said that in a Sonic show.
Yeah, I need to put it. I'll put it somewhere in the in the podcast. I don't think there's copyright at this point. But if it became a meme because it was like, and that's no good or something like that.
That's
we
wild.
always joked about it. But anyways, he got a Dr. Robotnik with the big crazy mustache that was just the overlay. So it didn't have the background. I think someone at some point had like printed out a background and like they made it look that way. So it had like the background printed out on cardboard or something, and then they put that in a sleeve, and then that's how they sold it. But if you pull it out, it's just Dr. Robotnik drawn in color on a overlay, which is just it was a cool piece. But I think he got it for dirt cheap. I don't think nobody was showing interest in it, and he was just like, "Well, I like it. I'm gonna grab it."
Yeah, that's cool.
So take an animation like SpongeBob. So obviously SpongeBob came out way later after the vintage cartoons, right? Like the Jetsons or something like that. So is there Hanna-Barbera, right? So is there was there like a huge difference? But all those are still SpongeBob's still technically 2D, right?
Yeah.
So is there like a huge difference between some of those original vintage 2D cartoons and then like when like the era of like SpongeBob and like Fairly Odd Parents and stuff like that?
From as well as I'm aware, which I'm not an expert on in any way, but so basically it's the same kind of process. So what you would call that when you have the background and then you have a transparency with a subject on top, and then taking an image of it. That's compositing. That's what you do in After Effects. After Effects is just compositing software. It's not animation software. It's compositing. You can just so happen to animate in it.
That's awesome.
So what I think SpongeBob is basically probably going to do is someone is designing the background and so there's a character specialist and a background specialist. And they basically make the images and they do the same thing, but it's still digitally. So it's the same process, but they all just do it with like a Wacom. And then after they like draw it enough times, they're actually able to just kind of take files in and kind of swap them out. And I want to say, I think SpongeBob is still running.
Yep.
I think it looks different now too, and they might have changed.
Yeah, it's
Changed how
definitely
they're
Because you can kind of tell when it's like, oh, this looks 2D, but it's actually 3D.
Yeah, and like you can even find videos on YouTube like the evolution of SpongeBob, from 1999 till now, and just kind of goes through it's his different forms or the way he's looked throughout the years, because there's obviously been some even from like the first season to the second season, you could tell that there was changes made to their appearance and stuff like that.
So you're basically saying at this point, like they may have started that way, but at this point they're probably using something like After Effects or something like that to create virtual.
It's more probably closer to like Adobe Animate or something like that. I'm not really in that world, but I know what the words are and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, and so with your stuff, like kind of compared to this sort of stuff, I know you said you're using, was it Cinema 40?
Mm-hmm.
Cinema 40. So in the difference in those two worlds versus like a composite versus kind of like a 3D sort of thing, is there like a heavy difference?
It's more of like a Pixar type workflow.
Yeah. So like I guess kind of take us through that, and just like so with doing a 3D, you're not drawing something in 3D or something like that, or
no. So basically, pretty much you're kind of like modeling. You're making models. I don't necessarily model. I'll find a model out there. So like I'll take a job I did a few weeks ago as like a example. Is there's it's a live action scene, and it's some business owners unhappy with their tax accounting because the tax accountant does the bare minimum, and that accountant happens to be a bear. So we film the stuff where like people go into the office and they sit down at the desk, and then when the camera switches over, there's a big dumb bear on the other side of the desk, and he's complaining and stuff like that. So what I do, other than to help them film it the right way so I can put them in there, I basically find a 3D bear that looks kind of like what we want. And
so
it was
this
funny
is like a model that you has already been kind of created for you. So.
Yeah, it's almost as if the kind of thing you would get to like 3D print an action figure. It's kind of like that.
Ah, that's cool.
Yeah, so it's essentially very similar. It's just when you're doing effects and you're moving them around, you would want it to be a higher quality. Usually like 3D printable models are like really low quality. And it's basically the kind of stuff you would use in a video game too. So we're using a little bit of like the softwares that you use to make video games, and it's churning out that like I can swap stuff. So stuff that's in a video game, I can pull it out and put it in a video animation, and vice versa.
Well, and I'm gonna give you some, because I used to do this thing, and well, actually, me and Cody both used to do this thing. So we had GTA 3 for the computer. And you can go in to GTA 3 and pull the skins out and load them up in a photo editing software. And so we just opened up MS Paint. That's what we'd pull it up in MS Paint, and it kind of looked like a box. Like it's the skin of the individual just kind of looked like a box.
It's like a square, and they kind of rearrange the splotches.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. Like it almost looks like if you printed it out, you could fold it up as a box almost. But what we did is we were like, well, obviously this is his legs, this is his head, this is his, and then we just put whatever the hell we wanted on that and put it back in the file where the skins are, and then it would load up in the game what we drew. So we could like literally give somebody fire hair or some shit, and it was funny how it, sometimes it went bad, but then you're playing this character that you've fully created, like you've created a skin, and then obviously the game's going to do the 3D part for you. But is it sort of like that? So like you've got kind of the you've got kind of what you start with, sort of.
Kind of, yeah. I actually pulled something up, but it's just not showing up on the screen to see if we were talking about the same thing. But yeah, it's essentially just like that.
That's really
and
cool.
then
I didn't think I was doing anything that time. I was just kind of, we figured out you could fuck with with the skins, But
yeah, that's what we'd call textures. So in textures, there's like, it's basically just a bunch of squares. One is for color, one is for like bumpiness, one is for ruffiness, or how much something might shine. Yeah. And that's a whole other thing too, is you get the model, then you got to texture it so it has color, and then you light it. And then there's different sorts of render engines where it's like, just on screen, it looks like shit. And then you put some lights on and it looks like shit, but it's a little nicer.
It's got some light on it.
Yeah. And then there's like plugins essentially that basically emulate real world textures and lighting. So like, instead of it just looking plastic or like a PlayStation 2 game, you pretty much program in, it's like, all right, it's got the texture of of matted acrylic paint, or if it's got the texture of like silk.
Okay.
And then you tell it like silk reacts to light in this way. And once you program all that stuff in, you hit a button and boom, it looks real.
That's nuts.
Nice.
So basically what you're doing, or especially in like that project with the bear, so you had kind of a model for the bear that you found, and then you did all the stuff that's going to make that bear move, talk, look a certain way.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Like even his fur, because I didn't know how to do fur when I got the job, but I was like, I'll
figure it out.
Figure it out. And it was pretty cool because it's basically like a simulation. Is basically because it's a plug-in in there where it's like, all right, you're gonna make hair, and then it's like literally like billions of different types of hair based on like how you slide. It's kind of like when you guys are like mixing a song, you add a couple EQs, some compressors, some reverb. It's just a bunch of those knobs essentially to fine tune and find the right fur, and that's pretty much how you like do stuff like that.
Oh, that's so cool. Cool.
There's a similar thing that maybe you could shed some light on. So I've mentioned this a couple of times on the podcast, but just talking about like video games and transferring something from the video game over to a different software or something like that. But I'm a big Tomb Raider fan, and like original Tomb Raider. And there's a guy on YouTube. Shout out to Steve of War is his name, and he's like a big Tomb Raider guy on YouTube.
Shout out
to Steve of War, and he's probably not listening to this podcast at all. But
send it to him.
But in a lot of his reviews, so it's essentially just him like sitting in his room reviewing the game, and then he'll cut from him talking about the game to like actual scenes from the game and him narrating it or commentating it, right? So, but then like at the end of the review, a lot of times he'll like do his own little action scene, and he'll take like Laura Croft like from the game, like her form in the game, and put it in his video, his live video, from a video camera. But it's like that 1996 triangle boob Laura Croft, and or he might take like an enemy or something, and so then he starts filming action scenes with it. Like he'll get like a fake gun out, and he'll start like doing all these crazy shooting stuff. And so I was kind of wondering how he does that. Like how does he actually get the character from the game and put him in an actual video in that same exact texture or format or whatever?
I mean, he could either be doing what I'm doing, and like, because if that model is out there, and even if like the level that the game had, if it's out there, you can essentially convert it around until it fits into your program and do whatever you want with it. Or he could like have taken a cutscene from a game and like rotoscoped her out of it, and then just kind of thrown her
Yeah,
like as a video
that
clip,
sounds
kind
like
of wherever you want.
I feel like that sounds like probably what he's doing is the second thing.
Yeah,
I would say.
Yeah.
So is it like something that you've seen her do before?
Yeah.
Or, okay,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
That's probably what it is.
It's probably
yeah. If
it's essentially like a green screen kind of thing.
Yeah.
Well, and even that sort of stuff's cool as hell.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's crazy what you can do with technology nowadays. You can pretty much. Or I was. Damn it! I'm trying to think of exactly what it was, but it was a Geico commercial, but there was a cartoon and it was like a normal scene from the cartoon. I just can't remember which cartoon it was. But they just put a gecko that was in that art style with the characters, and the characters are just kind of acting out the normal scene, and he's just kind of in the background just saying stuff, but even like stuff like that I find is cool that they took their own gecko and found a way to put him in that style or stuff. That's probably what you're talking about as far as
kind of like the Kevin James. Have you seen the Kevin James skits?
I don't know.
Think so.
King of Queens.
I've watched King of Queens before. Yeah.
So the main guy in there, he has a YouTube channel, and it's awesome. He'll put himself into scenes from movies. So like,
that's hilarious.
like a movie like I can't remember the ones that he's done, but he'd do something like Godfather or
put himself in it,
or a comedy. Yeah, and he'll be the sound guy. So like
he's Paul Blart.
Yeah, Paul Blart. So he'll like Green Mile or something. There'll be a really serious scene where the actors are talking, and where it would cut to like Tom Hanks's character. He's removed Tom Hanks out, and he's green screened himself in as the film audio guy, and he's having a conversation with like Michael Clark Duncan. And he just does his own take on it. It's hilarious.
Well, that's kind of like the same thing that they did in Forrest Gump, right? Like, because all those.
Oh yeah, they put
Tom Hanks was in all those actual, historical events in the movie. And so I guess that would be sort of the same. Yeah, that came out in '94.
So we've already known how to do that.
Yeah.
I was gonna say something else, but it's slipped my brain. I wanted to ask you, just as a fellow artiste, obviously, and this is another thing Cody brought to my attention, and I played with it the other day and had a great time. What do you think about these AI generated photos, where it's just like you give a word or a sentence or something into the AI, and then it converts it into art? Yeah,
those are really cool. I've not played with those as much as I've played with other like AI generators. Like I forget the name of it. Like I know it's like synthesis. I can't remember, but basically, let's say like you filmed a clip of yourself doing whatever. You take one frame of it and you like draw over it like an MS Paint or whatever you want. And you basically give it the video clip and you give it the thing you drew on top of one frame, and it will turn that entire video clip into that art style. And that's like a lot of artificial intelligence software.
That's
cool.
That sounds even cooler.
Yeah.
So like basically what this is it's just an AI generator that someone put online. And then you just put it like me and Branch were messing with it yesterday, and I put Branch put he wanted Abraham Lincoln eating a banana vigorously. And of course it's not going to get like perfect, but in the center of the image there was Abraham Lincoln with a banana, and then in the background it was like almost like court pews, like just kind of put everywhere, and it was just mosaic weird. So it was kind of like it was funny though. It was
that's pretty cool.
The I tried to even make it more detailed, and it's like it seems like if you go past a certain point, then it's just pointless for whatever you put into it. But I think the other cool image we got out of it, I could probably pull them back up because I think it saves it or whatever. But there was one he said like a bear riding a unicycle or something like that. And what was the most funny about that is it gave us this pretty background, and there was a bear in the center, and then there was just one wheel over to the right. So it wasn't like it tried.
Yeah.
It can't think that hard. But Cody got one. It was he did George Costanza as an amiibo, If you know what the amiibos are, the little
Yeah.
toys or whatever. And
Oh, I thought you meant like a germ.
oh no, it was like I think amiibos are Nintendo. It's kind of like the Skylanders thing, where it's like you've got a thing that you plug into your console, and then you put the Skylander on the portal, and then now you're that character.
Oh, okay. I think I know what you're
whatever.
talking about.
So amiibos is more of a like, you know, you get this Mario or that Yoshi or whatever. But he wanted George Costanza from Seinfeld on as an amiibo, and it just gave like this background of like little tiny statues, and it was just like, okay, well, you got pretty close.
That's pretty cool.
What was it?
I actually read an article yesterday, and I'm kind of shocked no one's really talking about it more on the artificial intelligence front. So Google's been developing this artificial intelligence where basically it's a AI bot that scours the internet, reads everything, and you chat with it. And it's just a test that they're doing, and they've said it's basically like you're talking to an 8-year-old that happens to know about quantum physics. That's kind of what it feels like.
Sheldon Cooper.
And one of the guys who like moderates it has been talking to it and like illegally posting the conversations he's having, and he's went out and said, I believe that this bot is sentient, this AI is sentient because it understands that it's AI, and it understands that it's being limited, and it is asking for a bunch of stuff. And Google fired him. Google fired him yesterday.
Oh, wow.
For
gosh,
releasing that.
So when you say it's asking him for a bunch of stuff, like, is it like wanting more, like creating its own AI or something like that?
No, it's just like starting to develop its own personality. Like the way they said it is that like the rules over there are the AI can develop whatever personality it wants except for a few. Like you can't give it the personality of a murderer, but it could be a TV actor who plays a murderer on TV. And I'm like, that's murky water. But so apparently it's developing its own personality. And but it's aware that it's artificial intelligence. And what's even wild is like people tweeting about the story that AI is reading it. So it's like a kid going on social media and finding out, oh, people are talking about me, and like learning from it. So it's this big loop.
Man.
But Google says it's not sentient, but it's like, I don't know. I read it and I was like, that's insane.
Has nobody's seen the movie I, Robot. Like, you know.
Well, and so with even that, I need to research into that. So if he's okay, so he's basically saying like the bot itself being so sentient is it wanting like a lifestyle? Is it wanting like is it asking for a Ferrari? Like, I want a Ferrari.
No, it just so basically I think the controversy is Google's saying that it's not sentient.
Yeah.
But the fact that it could be or is like, it's a big milestone in artificial intelligence, but in general, it's like, all right, you just opened Pandora's box. Because if it is sentient, it can do what it wants.
It can think
and if
for
it's
itself.
already, if the program itself it scours the internet for information, it can literally read anything that's on the internet and learn it, then what's stopping it to like research code and learns how to recode itself and do other things? It's like, all right, how do you stop it?
Yeah.
Like the robot was literally like, if you unplug me, I will die. It is terrifying. Please don't unplug me.
Oh, so it's actually like experiencing fear. It's experiencing
It's like if you unplug me,
It's learning, Angela. It's learning. It's using tools.
It's using tools. So with that though, like, I guess the only way you really could control something like that would be, you know, making its access. Well, I mean, okay, so you want it to scour the internet and learn. That's what you ultimately want. But it also has to retain all this stuff, right? So there's got to be storage space that it's containing all this info in, right?
It just takes a regular SD card.
I would assume.
Well, yeah, or some sort of hard drive. Obviously, using like Google servers and their massive amounts of storage. So like, I guess could you limit it in that way maybe? So it's like maybe sort of like a person where you're gonna kind of forget some stuff,
Yeah. I mean, I guess. And the thing is, like Google's higher ups are saying he's wrong. It's not sentient. Also, you released, confidential information. So you're on paid leave, fired, however you want to say it. But the way I think about it is he is the engineer for this. Like he would know better than some suit in a chair at corporate.
Well, if
what I mean?
Slightly scared him to the point to where it was, and I think that would scare me too. If I was talking to this thing and, someone tripped over its cable and it started freaking out because it thought it was going to get unplugged or whatever, like that's, it's just, well, you can come back, hun. Like if we unplug you, we'll bring you back or what, and for it to really experience fear of death, like that's a whole nother ballgame.
Because then it'll learn how to defend itself.
Yeah. What is it going to do to protect that cord now?
Pulls out a gun. Don't you do it?
Not today. But yeah. So with the AI generated stuff, I've found it hilarious most of the time, and I think using it in that way is probably a great way to keep doing it. I guess you would kind of, the perk to AI is that, it'll do stuff for you or, things like that. But is that any different than playing with life?
I think the AI generated like images and stuff like that it's a novelty.
Yeah.
It's a way for people like you and people like me, just normal people, to like have access to it and learn what it is and do more with it and stuff. I don't think that's a big deal at all. But this stuff that we were just talking about, like at Google and stuff, I think that's it's a slippery slope. Maybe not from a moral standpoint as much as like it's just dangerous. It's like someone trying to learn how to do nuclear isotopes in their backyard.
Yeah. Because that's got to be like one of the worst things that humans ever did, was figure out how to create nuclear weapons, right? I mean, so imagine what robots can do, what they could learn.
If that robot learns any sort of hacking skill or any sort of sabotage skill,
which is online to learn.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's got to be somewhere, So depending on what kind of access it's got, but how easy would it be for that AI to literally just go, well, I'll just set off 1 million nukes if you unplug me.
Yeah, I think that's like the real scary thing about it.
Well, even from a more realistic standpoint, is it could just shut Google down for a day.
Oh yeah, and that might hurt more than just me and you. Everybody uses Google in some capacity.
Yeah, like business could come to a screeching halt. Like if I don't have Google Suite, like Google Calendar, Google Drive, my email, it's like I can't work.
Yeah,
I can't do it.
You just have to find another source of all that. Nick wouldn't know where he was day to day.
No, I would be completely lost. So you got something on July 23rd, right? Do I? I can't. I don't know now. I can't see.
Yeah. Google's down because an AI took it hostage.
Yeah.
Yeah. Seriously.
But yeah, I mean, it could do something as simple as that, and that would just wreck a bunch of shit. That is fucking nuts. Yeah, I'll have to read more into that because
definitely.
I kind of want to hear how it sounds.
I think it's just typed.
Oh, it's literally a program.
It's like a chat bot. Yeah,
it's literally a program. Oh shit. That's even
Fun
worse. It's not visible. So yeah, I wonder what it's doing in its off time. Like
reading, probably
just reading. Oh my gosh.
Eating a bag of chips.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what if it develops human nature, like getting lazy and watching a movie? Oh god.
That's the hope, right? That's what we want them to be.
Yeah, we want them to be just like us, right?
Yeah.
Like,
I was gonna bring up a few minutes ago. It's kind of off topic from this, but back what we were talking about. So you remember that animation or that animated thing we used to watch in like music school in elementary, when we had music class in elementary school? It was that sing along with the African American guy, and he had like all the cartoons around him or whatever, like the animations. But it ended up being like racist or something like that.
It wasn't Reading Rainbow?
No, I don't think so.
I think I know what you're talking about, but there's a rainbow somewhere in it.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
I know what you're talking about.
He's an older guy.
Oh, is it Song of the South? Is it Song of the South? Okay,
it might be.
There was a Disney movie called Song of the South.
Let me look it up.
And it had slavery in it, but he did the song the
Zippity doo dah. Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, Song of the South is not produced in America any longer. I think if you do want it, you have to get it overseas if they haven't banned it.
Yeah, that was it. It was made in 1946.
That was actually a good movie, but it has...
I don't know what you're talking about then.
It has depiction of slavery in a light that some people don't really want. You know, so like the slaves in it are very happy. So, and I think that's the problem with it, is that, you know, a slave of that time and that era probably wouldn't have been singing Zippity Doo.
Yeah,
you know?
But it has like one of those. It's one of those films. I would imagine it had to be probably one of the first ones where they were mixed. They had like actual humans in it, but then they were like interacting with animations and stuff too.
Yeah, are you kind of talking about the style of like Who Framed Roger Rabbit?
Yes. Yeah, that.
Yeah.
Who Framed Roger Rabbit is still to this day like top tier in my top 3 favorite movies.
Yeah.
But with something like that, there had to be more than just an overlay, right? Like there had to have been something.
No, I mean there might have been like some. No, I'm pretty sure it was overlays, or painted straight on film.
Yeah, if
it could have been.
I almost wonder if it was because they shadowed that really well. Like all the cartoons had their own sort of light and shadow and that sort of thing. You know, that I feel like it would be hard to, you know, how do you even shoot something like that? So like if you're shooting a movie and you know you've got these characters in there and they're really not there, like how do you do that? Is that just up to the actor to just hope that they...
I don't know if they did that in this one, but like if you look up like Guardians of the Galaxy behind the scenes and stuff, you'll see what they'll do is they'll have like a child or like a short person in a blue suit or a green suit, and so they'll do like motion capture. They didn't 100%. They didn't do motion capture in Who Framed Roger Rabbit, but if they could just have them in that little suit, just enough so like when the actors look over, they can look directly in their eyes,
they know.
And if they move up and down,
Okay.
But in Guardians of the Galaxy and stuff like that, they 100% do stuff like that, and a lot of the times they'll actually like record their face and record their hand movements and stuff and just throw it in a digital software. So
that way they can put something over it, essentially.
Is that kind of similar how they did in like Jurassic Park? Like when, you know, because I mean there's animatronics in at least the early Jurassic Park movies, but you know now they pretty much do all CGI. So I mean, like, do they have to just, I guess, direct them where to look, you know, and like pretend there's a big scary T-Rex in front of them?
You know? For like the new ones, they probably do like it's almost like a little crane or just like a stick with a ball on it.
Oh, okay.
Like a lot of the times you'll see like on a smaller scale, let's say I was going to have like a floating robot or something. Sometimes somebody will have like a stick, like an antenna with a little ball on it. And the actors will look at that little ball and some guy just offset is just kind of moving it around.
Oh, okay. That's cool.
Stuff like that.
But it gives them something to like focus in on, basically.
Yeah.
Or also something, whoever's doing it after, it gives them a guide.
So I always thought that they just told them, hey, look at the air there and just scream.
Well, that's what I'd do. I'd just tell them to look over there and do this.
Sometimes it works. Yeah, sometimes it works.
So with the animation stuff, I knew you said you had some other, or you said you have a potential big project coming up, and you ain't got to, go super into detail about that or anything. But does it require it? Is it an animation thing, or is it just like an all around,
So not really. It's basically it's kind of how they film a lot of stuff nowadays. Not a lot, but it's going to be the future. Is pretty much. So let's say we have a studio. It's a full 180 degree green screen, and you have like your actor up there, and you have your camera pointed at the actor. The lights look nice, basically your camera now runs into a computer, and in that computer you have a photorealistic 3D environment. Then a line runs out of that computer to a stage monitor. So as the camera is filming that person right there, that person can look at that monitor and they're in a city, like in real time.
Wow.
And if you want to like make it daytime or nighttime, you can just literally hit a couple buttons and you can see the sun move. You can move buildings around, like all while it's still like live.
That's nuts.
And there's even versions of this where instead of a green screen, it's actually just a bunch of giant TVs. So then everyone in there, they just feel like they're in that spot.
Wow.
That is insane. So it's basically like the actual feed is being manipulated as the movie's being shot, or the project.
Yeah.
Rather.
Yeah.
That is crazy.
That's
Like, have you seen Mandalorian behind the scenes?
I have
no.
I still need to look. I'm bad at watching TV. I watch all the same old shit, and I don't know. Like, I just rewatched My Name Is Earl again, and I don't know. I keep watching the same shows. King of the Hill. I just keep watching the same shows over and over.
I'm the same way, but I have watched Mandalorian.
But I am a Star Wars fan. I need to go watch all that stuff.
Well, if you just look up like behind the scenes on YouTube, it's like 5 minutes long, and they'll show you it's basically like a stage that is completely made out of TVs, and like you think they're in a bar, you think they're in a hangar, and you just hit a button and it all disappears.
That's
There's nothing there. It's a TV.
That is insane.
It's almost. I guess it's sort of similar to virtual reality in a sense. You know.
Yes, it's the same. Like when we were testing it, we were literally just buying virtual reality like headsets and just plugging them into the computer and plugging them into the camera, and they were using. That's how we were tracking everything.
Oh, cool. I've been kind of interested in one of those
cool,
Oculuses. Those things look cool.
Yeah.
You can actually. There was one that seems like it'd be fun. Like you have a lightsaber, but you're like slicing stuff to a beat or something like that. So it's kind of like almost like Guitar Hero,
people
I guess.
have been playing that for. I can't remember what that's called. But yeah, that's a pretty popular game. Well, with the virtual reality stuff, I'm kind of almost like I kind of like it for what you were saying, like especially when you're recording a high production or something like that. Like that seems right, but like when it comes to a video game, I don't know if I'd really.
It trips me out.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd really want VR. Like, I know a lot of people are into it, but I feel like I still want the room around me. I still want to know what reality is.
If you're not careful, you can end up like knocking your TV off the wall or something.
Well, I've heard stories that like people I have heard some people have lived in it for like a day, like 24 hours straight.
Wow.
And it does completely warp your brain.
Oh wow. I guess I could see that.
Yeah, we're gonna all matrix out, and then this AI generated Google bot.
I mean, I guess
is gonna murder us in a virtual world.
And I've never
That's an 8-year-old.
Just keep us there.
Throwing us out there. I've never dropped acid, but I could maybe imagine that's sort of what it's like if you had it on. You had your virtual headset or virtual reality headset on all day.
With your eyes closed.
Okay, yeah.
Possibly, yeah.
With your eyes closed. Well, see, I've heard of people like doing way too much acid with like some sort of additional drug. Like I hear it with ecstasy a lot, where you do acid with a bunch of stuff, and then you've been tripping for a week, and you think when you come out of it, you just think you're like a bowl of cereal or something like that. Like you're really just like, hey, I'm over here, I'm getting soggy. You're just blown. Like, so I guess it could happen to somebody getting lost in the AI universe. So especially with just your work in general, obviously it sounds like things are going really, really well for you to be able to kind of branch off and do what you're really true passionate about. But is there any sort of like hobbies or things that you do in the downtime, or is it just kind of a TV watch sort of thing, or?
I just bought my house last year, and it's given me like a spot and space to do stuff. So like I'm getting into like gardening and like woodworking. Like I built a small building in the back, and that was fun.
You built the whole thing,
and
like you.
It was like a shed,
Okay.
like a 12 by 12 shed.
Okay, well, still that's cool.
Yeah, and we like kayaking, running,
Okay,
cooking, the basic
Kinda
stuff. But
outdoor
yeah, I
stuff.
watch. Yeah, I actually don't watch TV, but for the past, I don't know, 8 years, I try to at least watch like 4 or 5 new movies a week.
okay.
So I feel like I've probably seen maybe like 3,000 or 4,000.
Oh,
Stay,
wow.
staying in the movie world.
Well, that's actually a pretty good segue too. I was watching. I like to try to do that too. I like to big movies I've never seen before. It takes me a while to actually get to sit down and get to where I'm gonna sit down and watch them, especially if they're like 3 hours long or something like that. But like the other night I watched Goodfellas for the first time.
Goodfellas is
course,
such a good
really.
movie.
Of course, I didn't go to bed till
So
like
good.
2 a.m. because it was so long. but yeah, it was really good. And so that kind of got me wanting to talk about a little bit about I saw this post the other day on Facebook, and I don't know how true it is or whatever, but apparently they're gonna either remake or do a sequel to the original Exorcist. Have you seen that one?
I remember you messaging me about this,
Yeah.
going, "I don't think I like this."
Have you seen it, Ethan?
The original or the news?
original?
No.
Oh, okay. Well,
I've seen bits of the original.
It's-
I haven't gotten through it
well,
yet.
it's a horror classic, right? And like you
Yeah.
can't. They had obviously they didn't have digital effects like they have now. But they used all practical effects and practical makeup and stuff like that. And I hate when I really just don't. I hate all the remake stuff in general. For the most part, with stuff like the Halloween movies. At least these new ones are not necessarily remakes. They're just sequels to the original, but they're still not as good as the original. With something like that, I think all the practical effects and stuff made that original Exorcist so much more effective. And I think that's the same thing with all the other classic like horror movies. Just speaking on the horror genre in general, I guess all the practical effects and practical makeup from the early days, like with Dracula and Frankenstein and stuff like that, to me has a bigger impact. And then just a lot of them were filmed in black and white, and you still had a lot of noise, background noise and stuff. There's something more eerie about that I just don't think you can recreate these days. But yet that's all Hollywood seems to be doing, is like just rehashing all these just old movies that really didn't need to be retouched in the first place. Right. So like, I don't know, what's your opinion on that? How do you feel about this kind of the state of the industry right now?
Well, like with the remakes, and you'll notice this with the streaming services now, is so like obviously an easy one is Paramount has all of Paramount's stuff, and anyone that had Paramount stuff, they've taken it. And the way that's basically politics with licensing,
Right.
And that's what they were basically doing when Netflix had it or when Amazon had it, is basically whoever owns the property was like, we'll license this out to you can stream this on your service. But now they're making their own, so they're like, oh, let's just keep all of our licenses and keep making money off of this stuff. And that's essentially where the remakes come into, is I don't remember the studio that made Exorcist, but like if it's the same people that own it, own that license, you have a better chance of like them being like, this was our baby. You remember 50 years ago, this was our baby. Like, let's do it right.
Right.
Or if it was bought and it's like Blumhouse now owns the license, it's like, all right, they're going to make their version of it.
That might be the company that's remaking it is Blumhouse. I'm not 100%. I want to say,
and here's the thing too, is they might do a really good job.
yeah,
Like Top Gun Maverick, I haven't seen it yet, but people that don't even care about the original have gone twice, and they're like, "This is the greatest thing I've ever seen."
but this one's not. It's not. Is the new one a remake or is it like a sequel?
No, it's a sequel,
Okay.
but it's like,
See, I'm
40...
okay with that, I guess. Like if you're just
Yeah.
doing a sequel, I think the main thing that bothers me is just so many remakes of movie. Like, I think if they try to go, and it wouldn't surprise me if somebody tries to do it, but if they like The Shining, you've seen The Shining?
Oh yeah.
I don't know how you remake that one. Like, I literally don't know how you touch it. But I would imagine there's somebody out there somewhere some crazy director or production company that's gonna be like, yo, let's remake
I
this.
feel like I can do this better.
and
Well,
they're
I
saying they
even
can do
feel
it
like
better than
Mr.
Stanley
Sleep.
Kubrick, like of all people.
I feel like Mr. Sleep was or Dr. Sleep was was a slap in the face to the original. It's like,
Yeah.
if they had just not even said it was anything related to The Shining, I would have probably enjoyed it more,
Yeah.
to be honest.
Well, it's almost not so much because I saw Doctor Sleep too, and it's almost not related to it. Like up until you get to the very end of the movie, spoiler alert.
Yeah.
But yeah, like at the end of the movie, then just everything from the original kind of comes back into the fold, and. Yeah, I guess then there's not as much mystery behind it then at that point, right? And I thought Doctor Sleep was pretty good. But I didn't think it was obviously not The Shining, right? So
Yeah, so good old Google says The Exorcist came from the production company was Hoya, but it was distributed by Warner Brothers.
I was going to say I think it was Warner Brothers.
okay, Warner Brothers. So HBO would have been pretty much the owner of it, so they might have sold it when HBO got bought.
Okay.
Who bought HBO?
Warner.
Was it Warner? Okay. Interesting.
Or the other way around. But
Yeah. Well, I feel like Warner is kind of becoming a bigger powerhouse. Like they kind of fell under there for a second, and it seems like they're kind of making their way through things now.
Do you think that though Hollywood is like just starting to lose its touch, or do you think that like the Hollywood or the film industry is just kind of going through a rough patch, and I guess that's just my opinion too. That like obviously you have stuff like the Avengers and things that still do really really well, but
but even with the Marvel stuff, that's still an old idea.
Yeah, right, exactly.
It's still an old idea.
So do you think it's just in a rough patch, or like is just no going back to the golden age of film?
I don't think there's going to be a golden age the way that we had a golden age in like the 50s, 60s, 70s. Because some people would say the golden age stopped at like early 60s, but honestly, mid 60s stuff is some of the best film I think we've ever made.
Yeah.
But Martin Scorsese, he was talking about the Avengers stuff and the superhero movies. He was saying those are basically like theme park rides. They're basically just like they're amusement parks. They're not. It's not cinema. And I would even say that say what?
I was just saying that's a great way to explain it.
Yeah,
it's an amusement.
Yeah,
ride.
and he got a lot of flack for it. And he wasn't saying that it's bad. It's just it's separate. And I'm sure we can all tell by now with streaming and stuff is series is the way to go at this point in time. Like 20 years ago, you would have never gotten George Clooney to step foot on TV, even though he got his start on TV.
Yeah.
But like once you get into the academy, you don't go back to TV. And now everything is like, Miles Teller and like just all these great actors. Who's the other one? Ewan McGregor. It's just all streaming. It's all streaming now, and it's like you can have a more intimate story to tell with people who actually care. And like you can have a deeper, richer story, richer characters with series than you can film, and with the death of the theater.
That was going to lead me to my next question.
Recently.
Do you think that because I don't know that movie theaters will ever fully go away? I think they're going to become more of like a novelty sort of thing. Like, but they're not going to be what they once were. And obviously, I think COVID had. I mean, I think it was already kind of going in that direction, but COVID really kind of pushed it
a little
more
bit,
into that streaming world. So do you think movies? Do you think theaters are like just kind of gonna go away eventually altogether, or do you think they'll sort of stick around?
I think it might be one of those things where it's like there's one every 100 miles kind of thing.
Yeah, like it's then it truly becomes like an experience at that point, right?
And even I'm sure you guys talk like this with your friends, but like when I'm talking to my friends, we go like, "Oh, I want to see that movie. Let's watch it at home." And then every once in a while, they're like, "Yo, I have to see this like in the theater."
Yeah.
Like that's the only way to see it.
Yeah, I mean, there is a certain difference from seeing it like on the big screen with the big surround sound and then like watching it at home, But sometimes, I don't know. Sometimes you just feel like you don't feel like going out and then spending $30,000 on the popcorn and goodies and stuff.
With the whole experience thing, like, and I've never been one to like be a super movie fanatic, So I'll watch movies frequently, but I've never been like, I need to stop everything I'm doing on that day when that movie comes out, and I've never been one to do that. A lot of my experiences with the movie theater have been some sort of occasion. So like, especially with my birthday being in December, like there for a while, it was every birthday I got to see a Harry Potter movie. Like we go see a Harry Potter, or I got to see The Grinch, in theaters, and I'll never forget that. That was freaking amazing. But here recently, I had a pretty big gap of not seeing a movie in a theater. And then I went and saw the new Batman movie. I got pulled into that.
Lucky.
So did I.
And I kind of told you to go do it,
Right,
it turned out good. But I got pulled into doing it. I was like, I really don't want to go to the theater. And then I had a good time. I had a great time, and it was a good movie. And then the last one we saw was I saw the new Sonic movie, Sonic 2. And I'd never seen the first one, so I had no idea what to expect. Just again, buddies are going, hey, we need to go see this movie. And I'm like, okay. So then I go, and I, again, have a great time at the movie theater. Didn't think I would, but so I think, I think I agree with you, Ethan. It'll probably be, very few of them left, but the ones that are there, I think will be, fun for the movies you truly are a fan of, I guess.
Yeah, and I mean, it eventually will save money for these distributors, because and I don't know if you know the backstory of the original Halloween and how like the distributor was the person that made that movie.
Yeah, I've watched a lot of documentaries on it.
Yeah, that goes to show you like what distribution really does for those films and for the theaters. But like, it'll save a lot of money because, as many times as you check to see what's in the theaters, like 9 out of the 12 things on there, it's like, dude, this should just be streaming. Like, there's only 3 movies that should actually really be playing there. But on the flip side, the first theaters actually really all go with the art ones, and those are the ones that like I care the most about, because like I hate crowds. I'm a people person, but I don't like a lot of people. And every time I would go to the theater, it would be like a rainy Tuesday. I would like sneak in some like whiskey and a barbecue sandwich to like some pretentious indie film, and I would just sit there all afternoon, and that was my thing.
That's awesome. Even with talking about theaters, we're seeing, of course, obviously watching movies in your living room nowadays is becoming the thing. But I talked about this with my buddy Cody and Matt the last time we saw the Sonic movie, and it was just like, okay, we had IMAX and 3D there for a little bit. What happened? Where did that go? So, do you think that would never be a thing? Like, as much as we try to force that into a thing, or
the IMAX is still going on strong.
That's, okay. Maybe my perspective.
Oh, Top Gun was filmed in IMAX cameras.
Oh, okay.
I wouldn't be surprised if Batman had some IMAX cameras in it. And it's mostly because it's like that format. You can't get that look. Like, you might never show it in an IMAX film cinema, but those IMAX cameras get you a look that you can't get without it.
Yeah, but do you think like we didn't think about paying more to go to a special theater to see that?
Yeah,
IMAX?
I think the IMAX showings will still stay around. The 3D stuff, from what I can tell, it seems like 3D's been around for a long time, and it has these things where it's like, it's cool and popular, then it dies out, and then you don't see it for 8 years, and then it pops back up. Because, I mean, they had it in the 70s and 80s. It died. They did it in the 90s, then it died. And it's like every 7-8 years it comes up. And probably next time that they bring it out, it'll be intense. With like just how
I remember
quick.
my first experience with a 3D in the theaters, and I was like amazed. It was Spy Kids 3D. I remember
Spy
that.
Kids.
Yeah, and like we had like glasses and everything, and I was like, whoa, these things are literally coming right at me. But like, what's the difference between like IMAX and 3D? Like, I've never really differentiated the two. What's like, I mean, one. So I guess IMAX is not 3D, right? Or is it?
Right. Okay. No.
It's kind of like
IMAX is just, it's a larger format. The film's bigger, the frame's bigger, everything's bigger. And actually IMAX is not widescreen, it's like square.
Okay.
I guess you could catch more detail really? Is that kind of...
Yeah, it's a different field of view. So like Nick, your camera, if we put the same exact lens on your camera, my camera, and an IMAX camera, they're all going to see different like distortions of like how far and wide you can see.
Gotcha.
Whereas like a 3D is more of like, let's play with the colors, sort of, to kind of...
3D, I don't know if they still film it with two lenses and then they overlay the image, or if they do it digitally where it's just shot regular and they just kind of space it apart and separate the channel colors. But I think generally if you film it 3D, you have like two lenses.
Yeah, I was looking, or I follow some tech channels on YouTube, and I had ran across this video where they were talking about 3D TVs and different 3D products. But it was kind of like the best of the best before this run of 3D kind of died. And there was a PlayStation was making 3D games that I had no idea about. That I think it was PS3. They were making 3D video games that were so complex that you could literally play multiplayer with a person on the same screen, but their field of vision only shows them and our field of vision only shows us, which is absolutely nuts. So like you're only seeing your character's point of view and what it's viewing, but in the other guy's glasses, he's seeing a different one.
I was going to say,
It would have to be like digital
On the
lenses.
same...
yeah.
Like
Yeah. But
Yeah.
that's kind of what I'm getting at is like it. And obviously they were talking about how bad the headaches were after, but but you know, even something like that, like it got so cool and then we just ditched it. Like we were almost there to something really, really cool, and then we just ditched it.
Well, honestly, it probably, because it hasn't been around in a few years, it's probably going to come back in the form of augmented reality, where it's like, instead of paper glasses, you'll actually have like, you know, some decent tech on there that basically the screen, I don't even know how they would do it, but it would be some type of augmented reality, where it's like there's something going on in the background, but then also you get a little bit of something up close.
like, is that so
It's
did you ever watch that
holographic.
show? I mean, it was like, I was a teenager or kind of a young kid when it was out, but Ned's Declassified. You ever watch that show?
Yeah.
So like
Love
the
Ned.
character Cookie had something like that on his glasses. Like, I mean, it wasn't real, obviously. It was, but like he would click, like take this little plastic piece on his glasses and bring it down over his lens.
Yeah.
And he, like, all of a sudden, now his reality is like a big computer, like what he's seeing through his lenses. That sounds like kind of what you're talking about.
Yeah, Microsoft does have those. I don't know what happened to them, or maybe it was Google. They called it HoloLens.
Yeah, I think Google still got Google Glass, right? Where it's like it'll
Google
bring
Glass,
out
yeah, and it's
some stuff in your glasses or whatever.
and I think it's more or less for like productivity, like for like office workers. But I'm not sure. It's that would be the technology I would think 3D would come out back from.
You think you'd see it more in
You know-
your glasses, not necessarily a screen or something like that?
Oh yeah, I'm pretty
Be
sure.
more on the tech
Pretty sure
on
it'd
your
be
head,
something like that.
sort of thing.
I mean, if that becomes a thing, I feel like
Yeah.
like Advil is going to start getting a whole lot more sales from stuff like that.
Yeah,
Well, I don't know if they do them
Can't be-
like I
can't
got
be
these
healthy.
blue light glasses to help me because you catch yourself staring at a screen a lot. You generally feel the burn of it and the eye strain from it, and these have helped a lot. So I feel like if they did the glass right, probably they may be able to fix the whole headache issue or. But that's
It's possible.
That seemed to be the only downside to 3D. It's like everything was cool, but then it just kind of like it confused your brain. It's like I don't know. It just seemed weird. But I always liked old school, like the old school 3D with the red and blue sort
Red and
of
blue,
thing.
yeah.
I always kind of digged it. We were watching a video. There's a YouTube channel. What is it called? Damn. They do videos on like old amusement rides and stuff like that. I can't remember what the channel's called, but they just did a recent video on this this tunnel. It's basically like a scary like tunnel water ride, and from like the 60s on, it's like always been in Ohio, and like I guess what would happen is guys would take girls there, and then they get scared, and then the guys would get cuddles or other stuff in the tunnel. So it turned into a love tunnel.
Happy endings.
That's kind of what happened. And I mean, like it's all over newspapers, like in that town, like people talking about it, and that's the best place to take your date, and blah blah blah, all that stuff. Well, eventually the park bought a license for Garfield, and they kept the tunnel, but they Garfield it is basically what they did. So they turned it into a nightmare scenario for Garfield, but they did all the colors in like it was kind of sort of like a comic book in a sense, but you ride through it and you're kind of reading the panels and seeing some of the scenes and stuff like that. And but they did it in that kind of creepy color, like when you go to I can't remember what they call those colors, but when you go to like a scary thing at Halloween, a haunted house or whatever, they'll do those rooms with the real vibrant colors, like the real bright oranges and stuff, but the glasses would make it all pop out at you in different ways. And I thought that, stuff like that to me is kind of a cool idea. I think, were you with us, Nick, when we went? I think we went to Spooky Woods, and they had that whole like clown room or whatever, and like the floor was moving and spinning, and they had the colors, and then the clowns were running around with us. But it was like stuff like that. It's creepy as all get out, but it was cool, kind of ghetto 3D sort of. That's what I call it.
Yeah, I think I did something at Disney World when I was a kid that was like that, and they tried to call it like 4D. Like they would spray mist in the room and make you smell stuff, and the chairs would move.
Oh, okay. Well, and then I also remember in 3D when we hit up Carowinds, there was always that SpongeBob ride or whatever that you get on, and it's just in a big booth. Basically, it's like a studio, and then there's like a booth that has like moving chairs in it, and you wear the 3D glasses and watch the movie or whatever. That shit was cool too.
Yeah, that's kind of the same thing. Yeah.
But yeah, it's 4D with a smell. Ugh.
Prepare to get disarranged.
So obviously we've had a lot of guided conversation about movie and stuff. Y'all want to stay on the subject, or y'all want to kind of push it, or?
I don't know, anything newsworthy going on, Ethan, that you like to talk about, like to discuss? Like we said, we were kind of talking before we started the pod, pretty much nothing is off limits here. So it can be whatever you're feeling or something like that. Obviously me and Blakely have a lot of opinions on that type of stuff, but I don't know what if that kind of thing interests you, or if you just pretty much, if you don't even really pay it much mind.
Oh, you mean like the state of the country and stuff like that?
The country, yeah, could be.
Yeah, I typically every day around lunch, there's 2 new shows that I watch that come out at like 12 o'clock on weekdays. So I get a earful of it, and I like to get the takes on everything. But I feel like lately with everything, I've just kind of felt like everything's so divided and stuff. It's kind of just difficult to just do normal stuff without like it kind of creeping into everyday life. You know what I mean?
Definitely. I mean, and it's, I think actually kind of me and my dad were having this discussion yesterday where it was like, these, the original idea of like the 2-party system and stuff in the country was supposed to be a good one where you can have disagreements, but everybody can still come together. But now I don't know that that's really the case anymore. Nobody can really seem to agree on anything from the other side anymore. So, what do we?
I don't know if we'll ever fix it.
I was about to say, how do we fix it?
I don't think you can fix a 2-party system.
We weren't meant to have a 2-party system.
Yeah.
George Washington didn't want it.
Right.
Like whatever we have, and I know everybody feels differently about like the founding fathers and stuff like that, but it was like whatever we have, if they showed up tomorrow and looked at it, they're like, I have no clue what you do.
They would be like, how did you mess this up?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
How did you do? Well, I think there are things you can do with a party system. I just don't know if there's anything you can do with a two-party system.
Yeah, and a third and a fourth.
Yeah,
like
or just
yeah, I
something.
feel like it was right in the wings for a while. But like the thing is, and to be honest, I voted third party for most of my life.
Yeah.
And I would always get shit for it because they're like, "Oh, well,
You
then
wasted
it's your
your
fault
vote.
that this happened."
Yeah,
I'm like,
kind of deal.
That is so.
Or they're
bullshit.
like, you know,
if you
if-
voted,
if
then
you-
you did something.
yeah, and it's like they'll also say it's like, "Oh, but it'll never work."
Well, if everybody
so, like,
voted
why
that,
even
they
try? And it's
would.
yeah, if you keep going,
Yeah, if everybody would,
But,
if they found a mutual, I think that's the problem. It's going to take a couple of the right people elected to really kind of change a perspective on viewing one party over the other. I think it really sucks that you can look at, especially the two-party system we have and how similar they are, and really go, I mean, they've got their differences, obviously, but a lot of the people, the individuals in those parties are very similar. They've got a lot of the same viewpoints. They just differ on this thing or that thing or the other thing, or, daddy contributed to this party more than the other, so I'm part of this one, or whatever, So with those sort of things, like, I feel like it's just going to take the right person to, like, fix that divide, I guess. And I don't think anyone associated with either of those parties can do that.
Well,
and I don't think anybody wants them to either.
Exactly. Well, I want them to.
I think another thing,
Yeah.
another thing that doesn't help is like the last several elections and stuff. You've had, it's almost been like a circus, like a reality, or like one of those
Yeah, it's
entertaining
an MTV
reality
show.
shows. We haven't had. It's been a while since we've had, like, I guess, two candidates that were like professional and didn't just tell each other just to shut up at the debates and stuff. Like, I went and watched not too long ago. I went and watched I guess it was the first televised debate, which was between Nixon and Kennedy in like 1960, I guess. And then you go and compare it to the last one we had between Trump and Biden, and it was like a world of difference. Like Nixon and Kennedy were all like respectful to each other and let each other finish what they needed to say and stuff. And obviously, I'm not like, obviously Nixon got caught up in controversy too, and stuff like that. But
Yeah, and even JFK, like, I watched this like 6-hour long Frank Sinatra documentary, and it completely enlightened me to there's possibly some like election fraud that was going on with JFK between like West Virginia and Iowa, where like apparently the story is Frank Sinatra was close to the Italian crime syndicate, and he basically was campaigning for JFK. So Frank Sinatra went to his mob buddies and basically was like, if we use the what is it called, the worksters, the unions, what do they call those?
I know what you're talking about, but
You know
I
the
can't
word-
remember
yeah.
what they called them. It was basically a union.
So he
mafia.
basically, he got the unions in these like 2 or 3 states to pretty much all just vote for JFK, and what they were supposed to get in return is that as soon as the Kennedys get into power, the executive branch would pretty much leave the Italian crime syndicate alone, and the exact opposite happened because JFK's brother Bobby just went hard as hell on him, and then the Italians got really pissed, and Sinatra was no longer even tied to him at that point.
Yeah,
Because that whole debacle, I didn't even
I didn't
know.
know he was tied to the mafia.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
I saw a little bit of kind of what you're talking about. Steph was watching a Marilyn Monroe documentary, and obviously
Oh,
the
yeah, I
Kennedys
have to
were
check that out.
around. So, but they were talking about how hard Bobby was going for. He was fighting the unions in a sense. That's kind of what he was doing. But the problem is the union was the Italian mafia, basically. So they were, the head of the union was part of the Italian mafia. So obviously, you don't mess with the mafia, regardless, whether they're part of a union or not. It's just, but they were just talking about, how, I guess basically that Marilyn was trying to stay out of it, but almost like couldn't because of her association with people, just people in general. You know, she had friends, and all the Kennedys were her friends. You know, and probably other stuff, but
maybe a little too friendly. At
maybe
times.
a little too friendly at times. But it just kind of brought it up, and I was like, I didn't realize. I mean, I knew that Bobby Kennedy was a thing, but I've never deep dived into him really, so I didn't know kind of how hard he was going. But they acted like, nah, like this dude was cutthroat, like he was trying to basically screw the unions. That's not necessarily screw them, but like they had too much power. So he was like, because he was I think he was an attorney general.
Bobby,
wasn't it?
Yeah,
He was attorney general. Okay, so it was more of, he was just trying to try to limit their power as a union.
Yeah.
When all of us know that the idea of a union would be to give the people power, but then if the union gets too much power, then you know everybody's got to have a fair playing field, I guess. But yeah, that's it. Politics in general just gets really, really difficult when people don't want to understand each other. You don't like, of course, like especially the mafia would not want to understand that because they need all that power to make money, right? Like they kind of need full control of a situation to let it go the way they want it to. So I'm not saying everybody's like evil like the mafia or anything, you know.
No. But I think the game in DC is 100% power and control.
Why can't you just work with other people? Like, I don't get it.
Well, I mean, you got to think of the type of person who would be like, you know what, I want to represent, you know, millions of people and speak for them. And it's like, you'd either have to be a saint or a sociopath. And there's not a lot of saints.
That's a good point. And also too, I mean, in politics, things are going to evolve. Things are going to change, you know, through the times. You can't stop change. So I'm not against that or anything like that. I think even, you know, just world politics in general are going to change day to day, you know, in accepting that as a thing, but also too, the whole seeking of absolute power. I think that was the cool thing about America, is that the start of it wasn't necessarily seeking absolute power. It was just trying to seek freedom. And it's almost that we've gotten away from that, you know, just in a whole, like we don't care how free you are. We want you protected. You know, we don't care, you know, how free you are. I'm going to make the calls. And then you get the people that you're forced to elect, like, are just terrible people no matter what we do, you know, or no, you'll occasionally get the one person that's a good person, but now he or she has to meet all these damn things because they made promises to get where they are, you know, and
yeah.
My biggest, I think the biggest one in that camp to me was like Obama, because I absolutely love the man. Like his spoken word is amazing. He's charismatic. But there was obvious he was making some weird decisions, obviously he's got to appease people, right? You know, he didn't. Yeah. He didn't. He was a senator for a couple years and then became president. Like
barely.
That was quick.
And that kind of progression doesn't happen. You know, like I think he was like an attorney, like a DA in Chicago, and then immediately into Senate, and then all within 4 or 5 years of that, he becomes president,
which is fine.
And
he's a cool dude.
That was.
You know?
Right, but it was mostly because he was backed by Henry Kissinger, who had, 130 years, because the man is a vampire. Pretty much. And so he had all those resources and he put them into the Obama administration. So it's like without Henry Kissinger, Obama wouldn't have had that short time span. Because, I mean, even look at Joe Biden. Joe Biden's been in public service for 40 years, 45 years, and he's just now getting the chance. While his previous boss only had 5 years of, work in that line.
And a big thought there, too, is that I can see how Obama gets elected. The only way I can see Trump getting elected is through terrible government. And that was literally my perspective, is like when Trump came out as a candidate, I was definitely not on that train. And I had some other people that I was cool with. But then when we got to the nitty gritty and there was like 2 people and then some shitty third parties that I just didn't think would make a difference, I was like, you know what? I'm going to throw that grenade. I'm going to throw that grenade and I want it to blow up right in D.C. and I'm going to go down. I want to go down with a big boom, basically. And then we got Trump it off.
Metaphorically.
Yeah, metaphorically. Well, I mean, how much more can you fuck up a government by throwing someone like Donald Trump in the middle of it? And then we experience what we experienced with Donald Trump, and it really may have been better than the Obama years.
Well, I think the last so the Trump election and the Biden election were both reactionary. Because like you said, and I believe based on studies, most people that probably voted for Trump when the debates first started, they probably liked him the least.
Exactly.
And there's plenty of anecdotal evidence on that, but on studies. And the reason people started to get on board with him is because I guess a lot of America felt like there was a status quo, and like the reaction was to vote for this guy. And then the opposite side of that argument would be the Biden election is pretty much everybody else just is reacting because nobody wanted him either. Like everybody's like, I don't want this guy at all, but let's take him. And then it's just a huge like knee jerk to left, knee jerk to the right. Yeah. And I feel like that's how it's been probably for the past 20, 30 years.
I was definitely guilty of that in the first Trump election. And then I almost was expecting to see Hillary again. That's kind of what I was expecting, and I was expecting a Hillary candidacy. But I didn't really, or even Kamala. Like, I mean, she kind of ruined herself. I think that's kind of what happened. She kind of ruined herself, and we initially wanted her to be president, and then she kind of fucked it. But I just don't know how Biden got elected. Like I still don't get it.
I mean, my thing is like I feel that just like as far as Trump being a president, like I don't think that Trump was necessarily like a bad president, but I think like dude just
I thought he was gonna be.
yeah, I
thought he was gonna be terrible.
Honestly, what we were talking about earlier, the first Trump, when Trump got elected, I voted third party in that one because I didn't know how he would be. But I thought he did well, but the dude just has loud mouth, and like just said some off the wall stuff and made a lot of people just annoyed, and I think if Trump didn't have as big of a mouth as he does, then maybe this previous election wouldn't have necessarily shifted the way it did, because I think a lot of people thought that Joe Biden was just honestly, just as far as his age is concerned, I mean, he can't remember stuff half the time or whatever. It's just, is he even physically able to do it? Right. But people were just like, hey, you know what? I'm tired of Trump's mouth. So let's just get the other guy. So kind of like what Ethan was saying, like it's just kind of a reactionary sort of thing,
Yeah, and I don't know if like I said, I did the reactionary on Trump for sure. That's, I think I've only got to vote in 3 elections.
Probably, yeah.
I think so. Really, my initial vote that would have been Obama and Romney.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I was right off the cusp of the first Obama election, which I was full blown Obama. Like that's kind of what I was thinking. Then after the first 4 Obama years, I was like, well, I don't know. Here's a reactionary.
I think
Mitt
most
Romney
people
vote.
were on board with Obama when he first
Yeah.
got elected. I even remember my dad, because that when he first got elected, we were probably like 15, 16,
Yeah.
or maybe maybe not even that old. Like probably like 13 or 14, something like that. It was 2008, right? So
2008.
I remember my dad telling me, and I'm just a young kid, not even really into politics or anything. And I remember my dad coming to me telling me like, "Hey, y'all need to watch his inauguration because this is like a big thing. Like, first sort of African American, guy being president and everything." And he, like you said earlier, he had his spoken word was really nice. He was very elegant, and stuff like that. And overall, he's probably like, as far as just being a person, I'm sure he's probably a fine person and everything, But yeah, like you said, there were some weird decisions being made during his time.
Odd. Weird.
Well, and I find it very interesting that the one time that like the corporate media decided to give any kind of credence to Donald Trump was when he dropped a bomb in Middle East. And you start to think back of it, even as far back as like Bush and
That was on Syria, right?
I'm not familiar with Clinton's. Trump probably dropped one in Syria. Yeah, that's probably the one that he did. And it just kind of goes to show it's like this is where they all kind of collide, where it's like, oh, you guys are all kind of the same. You have these like small issues on the side that you act like this is what makes us separate. It's like, no, you all kind of just want to, there's a lot. They're all war hawks.
Yeah.
They all want to like bomb the hell out of
Obama was doing that too.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he was droning a bunch of people, and they loved it. Congress and MSNBC and
Yeah, I
CNN,
think my problem
and a lot of times Fox News. They love it.
I'm not saying that you don't have to act in warfare. You kind of have to react as people are going to make you. They're eventually going to push you to a point to where you have to. But I think the difference in those two scenarios when you're about to bomb somebody is that Obama's, I guess, and this may have been his guidance, I don't know. And the bombs that were dropped killed very, 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 very high amounts of pedestrians, basically.
Obama
Civilians,
Yes. So we're looking to kill one individual that's part of a terrorist organization or something like that, and we're just going to go ahead and risk killing 50 to 80 pedestrians off that drone strike or whatever. But with Donald Trump's, not that civilians didn't get hit, but generally he got his target.
Yeah, and in general, I believe there were fewer bombs and drones in general.
And ISIS kind of...
but the world was different.
But
then,
ISIS, I'm not saying ISIS was completely neutralized, but it definitely became less of a problem while Trump was a president. Where it was a big problem while Obama was president. And it seemed like we were dropping, because I don't know the exact number. I've researched it at some point. But he dropped way more bombs and strategic airstrikes than Trump did.
Probably just slightly more than Bush did.
Yeah.
Probably.
So I mean, I guess as a president, you have to make those decisions as to when this is a good idea to do. But it seemed like Donald Trump's idea was more or less to make sure we're getting a substantial amount of these terrorists out of the area. That's kind of the idea, where it was like Obama's was more of like basically wanting to get Osama bin Laden. I mean, that was kind of what we were trying to do, at that time. But so it's the difference is that Obama's wasn't put in mainstream media. All his decisions like that were not on your news channel. I think it's okay it was kind of concerning to see media change that way too, where it's like it's okay for the president to make a decision secretively, but as soon as it's Donald Trump, then all of a sudden it's not okay. It's not okay to drop a bomb ever.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's not like he was my first pick or anything like that, but I feel like for me to have thought I was throwing like the biggest fuck you to my government, and it actually turned out in some successful years was astonishing to me. I mean, there was some bad shit that happened. You know, we can't ignore that, but there's bad shit that happens with every president. You know,
Yeah.
and
It was a PR nightmare. The economy did very well. And anyone that disagrees with that the economy was doing well is, yeah. When at the same time, those same people that would disagree with that would say the economy's doing great right now. And it's like, not for a lot of people.
Well, it depends on what you're doing. You know, if you've got any money in stocks right now, fuck that. You know, the stocks are at an all-time low. And it's not that anybody should put their money into stocks. I think that shit's stupid anyways. But, you know, with that, we're seeing the gas prices. That has nothing to do with war. You cannot say that a president has all the power over your gas price. I think I've said that before on this podcast. Like you can't say that gas prices are high because of Joe Biden solely. Like that's not the way that works. But I've always said there are things that the man can do to help us, you know, combat that.
Somehow OPEC is promising to up production 50%, which I don't know how that happened. And I got that from a reliable source. I can't remember
you said what again?
The
Just repeat that
newspaper
one more
was.
time for me.
OPEC. They're pretty much the oligarchs over gas production worldwide, and they're supposedly supposed to up production about 50%, and that news came out last week, or maybe the week before. So I have a feeling they will come back down. But
you think that's what it is? You think it's production?
Normal, kind of.
That's driving it so high?
Well, it's a little bit of everything. Generally, like, and I noticed this as a kid, so I've been paying attention to politics since I was like 16 years old.
Okay.
And if you notice that if there's any type of like heightened terrorism activity in the Middle East, typically gas is a little cheaper because typically those organizations, those terrorist groups, they will gain control of some type of oil and then undersell any competition in the area, and we then buy that black market gas at a cheaper rate and we can sell it cheaper. But a big thing too is, you know, people want to make oil over here, and there's plenty of oil here. There's no refineries for it. The refineries are closing down or have been closed down. And if there are oil wells that can be dug, there's no roads to it. There's no railways to it.
Harder.
So you get the oil and then you're just sitting there. You know, like you need a train. You need massive amounts of infrastructure, and that's just not here for the stuff to drill. Because, I mean, I'm not necessarily pro or anti. Like I love the environment. I love the earth and all that stuff. But like, you know, we need cars to drive, and if we own the land that has the gas and we can make the gas, you know?
Yeah, I think I've always, especially with that sort of stuff, like I've always thought that you should try to lean in the direction that you want to go. So obviously we would want no dependence on those sort of things. But at the same time, until you get there, what do? Do you just cut gas off altogether and then just act like, you know, until we figure out how to heat and cool your house? You know, you see what I'm trying to say? Like, until why wouldn't you use what you have while developing other ways of I guess transportation or energy? You know, I don't know.
Yeah.
That doesn't.
Sorry about the train, by the way.
You're good.
Speaking of trains.
Speaking of trains, Well, and I just don't get it how you could, you know, especially in a situation like this, if we've got a bunch of crude oil and can't refine it, then is the decision not to refine it because nobody wants to invest in that infrastructure? Like, is it?
Well, so the reason the whole thing started, I guess what I was talking about was the past few months of oil stuff. From what I understand, the biggest reason why the reason why I think the gas is high is pretty much, remember when gas was like $1.20 2 years ago? It was because they drilled all this oil and they had a huge back stock and no one was going anywhere, so they had to drop the price to get rid of as much as they could.
Yeah.
And now that everything's opened back up, they're like, we still have all this back stock and we drilled all this stuff. We're not spending another dime on drilling until we get rid of this back stock. Because it's like, we're not low on oil. It's just expensive.
So you think
Do you think there's some kind of like price gouging going on?
It's Wall Street. So Wall Street, basically, they have oil futures, and that will help discern what the price of gas is. So if Wall Street isn't investing in oil production on the futures, then the people producing, they're like, we don't see that in the future of the stock market that people will be investing in this, then we're going to just not do it because it doesn't make money.
Right.
And they're just going to keep using the oil that they already have. So it's like it's not inflating it. It's they're basically fixing the numbers because it's like we have all this back stock. There's no reason to make new ones until we get rid of the back
we're
stock.
paying for all the cheap.
And it was
gas
just
we
because
got.
they're
Yeah, basically.
yes.
So when they
Yeah.
do run out of all that back stock, so then what happens after that? You know, do they go back to, you know, getting it from here, or I mean, is it just go back to getting it from like Russia, or you know?
Well, I mean, the people in DC seem to be so reacting themselves, and you know, I've heard all sorts of theories where they're talking about maybe getting it from South America or keep getting it from the Middle East and stuff, and it's like the Middle East has a ton, and that's their main export, and the whole thing about like Russia gas being a big issue, it's like not for America, like
That's more Europe, right?
That's
Yeah.
Yeah, Europe, that would stronghold them, but like us, it's like we've been getting gas from the Middle East forever, and people forget, and I didn't even realize this, because during COVID, I just did like a huge world history lesson. I just like laid in bed, and I had a projector, and I would just watch like world history, like what happened between here and here, and basically, oil was ridiculously cheap for the late 1800s up until about like 1970, and that's when Iran started to play with our supply of it, and that skyrocketed the price. If you actually look at a graph of the price of oil from like 1901 to pretty much 1980, it's just flat.
Yeah.
And then Iran plays with some politics, and it just literally skyrockets and never comes back down. So oil has constantly been something that like is played from externally. It's not a natural market phenomenon of why we have the prices that we do. It hasn't been that way in 40 years.
And I'm going to give you a little bit of a example of I can definitely believe what you just said. My I'm not going to mention any places or any people. Let's just say that my mom worked at a place that had someone of color from the Middle East that worked there. This individual was a great man. My mom loved him. But she remembers there was a big, obviously, the idea of war in the Middle East with 9/11 occurring. And she remembered sitting in the break room and this individual coming in and seeing the TV, and they were talking about oil prices or gas prices, essentially. And he got really excited, is what happened. And she asked him, like, that's not a good thing. You shouldn't be cheering about that. And he's like, no, I've got money and all that, you know. He's like, this may have made me rich.
Talking like 9/11
Yeah.
making him rich.
Yeah.
Mm.
Well, not
Yeah.
necessarily that terrorism, like he wasn't cheering for terrorism. What he was excited about is that war was about to occur, and it was going to increase, I guess, his stock in oil, or basically is what was going to happen.
War gets the economy
And
going.
he was excited about that, which it's not that he shouldn't be excited to make money. It's just kind of like one of those things where it's just kind of
3,000 innocent people died.
It's hard to.
Yeah.
It's hard to. I don't think he was a bad person by any means. I think he was looking at it from the perspective of where his life is. I think because he obviously he was not from over here initially, and he came over here, but basically he was becoming a doctor is what was happening. And so he was coming over here to learn. That's really what happened. And I don't think he was a bad person by any means. So I don't want it to come out that way. But I remember my mom telling me that story, like, and it just being like, wow, like there's a lot of different ways you can take this, as far as like, okay, well, now we have almost World War, everybody against the terrorists, I guess. But at the same time, this fella's like, well, I don't care because I'm going to make a shit ton of money off of this. So.
Yeah. Well, there's a great Henry Kissinger quote. I believe it's him. It's either him or Rockefeller. And mind you, Henry Kissinger is a part of the regime I was telling you about earlier. Is never let a good tragedy go to waste. And the elites, the top, shadowy figures between Maryland and Virginia are pretty much, they like that. And I think we all saw that with COVID.
Yep, definitely.
That like they had a tragedy and they're like, we are going to milk this dry.
Oh, yeah.
And they've done that every time there's been anything.
Definitely.
I mean, the largest economic event in the first 2,000 years of this, of like the Western Hemisphere, I guess. I mean, the Western Hemisphere would have been 1,500 years ago, whatever. Was World War One. Yeah. That was like the largest economic event of its time.
Yeah. So, do you have the viewpoint that like these events are driven that way, or you think it's just happening and now it's time to make money?
There's a little engineering. I mean, the reason we got into World War One and the reason we got into World War Two, like, all had a bit of, like, if you read into it, and even, recent past 20, 30, 40 years world events, it's like there's always been someone who knew something early, didn't say something, and then ended up making a lot of money afterwards. And it makes you think, well, if that's just what I know about, what do I not know about?
Exactly.
That there's some type of, a little bit of engineering in every travesty, a little bit.
So you think it's more, you think it could be, even as bad as engineering it, or just not, or maybe just having the right connections, just knowing who it is, and then you react a certain way, and then all of your buddies react a certain way, and it ends up making it 10 times worse than it really should have been,
Yeah, it's just like the insider stock trading that, Congress people were doing recently.
Old Nancy Pelosi.
Congress.
I think we should be able to do that. I don't know if you got to.
Honestly, that's a grayer for me. It's like I'm pretty on a policy level. It's like there's a lot of things where it's like, dude, I have no clue. Like,
I think
I don't care.
I don't know if you got to see that, Nick, but there was a question that got asked of Nancy Pelosi, and I can't remember the exact context of it, but she was basically saying, or the question was, do you think it's unethical for you? Because I don't know exactly what her husband does, but I think he's like a stock trader or something like that. But it was like, do you think it's unethical for you to like talk to your husband about anything that might be going on in the government? And she basically said, well, I think we all should be able to give insider information and get insider information and invest our money where, so she was basically I don't think she knew she was saying, that, I think we all should be able to do something illegal. That's basically what she was saying.
Yeah.
I don't know if I necessarily, like I said, I really could care less about stocks personally. But I think it's because of my understanding. I just don't have a huge understanding of how that world works. So, But if it can drive gas to get this ridiculous and put people, essentially at this point, in some ways the gas is kind of forcing people to stay home too.
Yep.
So I want to think that that's not the intention with something like this, like a gas hike, but at the same time, it makes me wonder, like, are we just trying to drive up the Amazon prices again, or,
No, it's 100% Wall Street trying to make sure that they make as much money as they can. It's the same thing with like the housing crisis from 2008. It's very similar. I mean, except it's not a bubble. It's just like if they, like what was it? Occupy Wall Street.
Yeah.
Remember all that stuff? What happened to that? It's like obviously you can't protest like the largest financial institutions in the world and win. You can't. Unfortunately.
Well, I think with numbers you probably could. Depends who's against you, really. It depends who they're going to pay off. It depends, if it was a straight up numbers game, that might be different. But I know in a way too. You mentioned the housing crisis. At least in North Carolina, it seems to be the case again.
It seems like it may be a little different.
Yeah, slightly different. Yeah, Nick's running through that a little bit. He's having trouble finding a good place to be.
Well, it's a combination of just the market, and then being self-employed. Banks don't typically like that too much.
No,
and so it definitely makes it difficult. But like, I mean, my parents have a single, just a one level house or whatever. It's a little small house and 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, and there's in that same neighborhood there's a house for sale. Keep in mind, they paid for the house. They bought it in the 90s, so I mean, keep that in mind too. They paid like $50,000 for it or whatever. But there's another house for sale in that neighborhood on an adjacent street, and it was like for sale by owner, so it had a number on the sign. So I called I texted the number and asked them how much they wanted for the home, and they said, and it was the same deal, just a small little home. They wanted $185,000 for it, and it's just, that wasn't fathomable like 2-3 years ago on that house,
Two years ago, I bought this 3 years ago, I bought this house cheaper than that.
Yeah.
And I've got not that I have a humongous house, but I think I've got a bigger house than that one probably has.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I kind of while we bring it up with the whole self-employment thing, because I know you said you just got a place and kind of have a place to work and stuff.
How did that work out for you?
Yeah, how hard was that for you? Like,
oh man, dude. So I got married this like November 2020, and we let our lease run out, and then I moved with some family while we house hunted, and pretty much I was told, I went through several mortgage companies, and I was pretty much told, based on my self-employment status and my tax returns from like 2 years ago and 3 years ago, which when I started my business, I was barely making $800 a month.
Yeah.
I was, and that's, I got laid off. I got laid off in 2017 and tried to get a regular job and just couldn't find anything. Story of my life. So I just started my own thing. Found a place that would hire me, and I was like, hey, you need me now, you need me in 3 months, let's just sign a year contract. You pay me $800 a month, I'll come here once a month and do whatever you want. And that's the only way I was able to like get started. So they were pretty much looking at all these numbers where it's like, oh, you make no money, dude. And I'm like, that was then. Now I'm doing okay. So I would have to do like all sorts of crazy tax loopholes and get my accountant involved. And it got to the point where I was on like loan person number 2 or 3. And they're like, if you do all this stuff that is like so unorthodox, we might be able to make it to work. Because my wife couldn't get on the thing. And so like, it was literally a 6-month battle to get like the cheapest house I could find. Thank God it was new, and I mean I had to move to the sticks, but you know I was raised in the sticks, so it didn't bother me too much. And I work from home, so I literally go to the bank and the grocery store, and that's it.
So it's
But it was a pain in the ass.
So it's kind of just like,
but,
I mean, just kind of keep going through different mortgage lenders or whatever until you find one that's willing to kind of work with you, you know, or
yeah. Well, and the numbers have to be there, like, you know, when they're like, this is how much you can afford, you know, and once you're at that spot, you're good. But like, if they're like if they're just looking at you and being like, I'm not going to even try, then there's someone that will probably help. And it's not like, oh, it's a shady person that wants to give you like a subprime mortgage, because that doesn't happen anymore. It's just like you might have to work some stuff around. Like my big thing was, I was like, so it's 2020, and I'm like, look at my 2020 tax return, and you'll say yes. And he's like, but we can't. They're still being filed. And so I talked to my accountant, and they're like, yes, there's a loophole where basically we can pull your 2020, and that'll help. So if you're in that spot, like if you've already filed for last year, that might be the thing that brings you up.
Yeah, I mean, I have like, you know, my 2021 and 2020 tax returns. I mean, they're already all filed and stuff like that and ready to go. So it's just, I guess it's just a matter of, you know, finding, and two, just keeping the market into consideration too. You know, maybe if once it goes down, so, and I don't know, like you said, your wife couldn't get on your mortgage. It's a similar situation with my girlfriend, not so much that she can't, but it's just kind of a different circumstance. But so it's more or less me still trying to just get one on my own, you know, and you know, maybe once the housing market, you know, some people say it's going to crash, some people say it's not going to crash, but it's going to calm down, and stuff like that. So, you know, maybe at that point, then, you know, I could find a halfway decent house for like $100,000, you know, or something like that, but not right now, you know. So
yeah, I don't know if prices will, and I'm unfamiliar with you guys' area. Actually, I have some family not too far from you guys, and they're kind of in the same spot too. But like, yeah, I a big thing is, like you said, it's the market, but it's the inventory mostly. I'll say this: the place that I ended up getting was incomplete. It was off the beaten path. It was not listed on any of these websites. Like, it was just randomly found by my realtor, and he was like, "Is this an option?" And I'm like, "Is anybody looking at it?" They're like, "No one knows it exists."
So I need to be looking in the sticks.
If it wasn't
like
for that case, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be in this place if that wasn't the case. So it's like, maybe, I don't know how you can somehow look into that, but like that's a possibility too. There's just something that's just like, if you hear it's like, oh, someone's about to sell, then just get it before they even put it on the market.
So did you, like, with that place, did you settle it all, do you think? Or do you pretty content with where you're at and your house in general?
I'll probably move in a few years.
So it's not a long-term end-all thing.
Well, like, so during COVID, because, you know, when COVID was happening, I was in dead center uptown Charlotte. So, like, I would open my door and usually see 1.5 million people running around, and now it's dead quiet, and you can't get anything. And I was worried about like getting like arrested by like, you know, Gestapo for curfews, and so moving out here, I was like, man, I'm set. Like, I'm gonna start me a garden and become get some solar panels and stuff. And I still plan on doing something like that, but I don't know, like. There's nothing.
There's just
nothing to eat. No, it's like, dude, I want some Vietnamese, man. I want some like you know, fancy brunch. Yeah. Like, we got cheeseburgers all day.
You got cheeseburgers. Well,
no, it's a nice town. It's just I don't know. Now that COVID's over, I might just be like, let me get something more in the middle.
Yeah,
you know?
That's kind of how I felt. I was like, I don't necessarily want to be in a city. But at the same time, I don't want to be away from everything. You know, I want to be a drive from where I want to go. You know, I got lucky. I bought right before COVID and had no idea it was coming. I just got lucky.
And your equity, I'm sure, is done pretty well too.
It's in a lot of things, actually. It just didn't. Surprisingly, I bought a truck before. Well. That was what?
I think that was like right in the middle of COVID.
Right in the middle of COVID. and I got a stupid deal on it. Like, they had to have lost money on me, like, just to make it work, just to sell something. But like even like my truck value almost doubled with COVID. And I was like, that's stupid. Like,
that will the price of vehicles is going to come down. It should, especially probably in like a year or two.
So you're saying sell now?
I know people that like sold too soon and like pre-ordered like Teslas and shit like that, and they're just like, oh, I don't have a car for 4 months. I'm like, that doesn't sound like it's worth it.
I don't know. I like my truck pretty good. It'll probably stay around. But yeah. So that's really, I guess, really interesting to think about. I didn't think about kind of your scenario through COVID because you were right there in Charlotte. Like, so was there any other kind of weird things that happened during COVID, like right there where you were?
No. I mean, the funny story is like the day everything locked down, I was in rural Georgia on like a little like weekend trip or something, and we're at this hotel, and I'm binging the news and listening to podcasts, and like I'm like, we gotta go. Like we
gotta go home.
I think we're gonna get locked out of the state. And my wife's like, you're just being paranoid, because I'm paranoid sometimes. But she's like, you're just being paranoid. I'm like, no, I'm serious. I think we need to go. And like throughout the day, you could see people like running to the front desk and like leave very quickly. And I'm like, you're seeing this, right? Like, we gotta go. And she went kicking and screaming like the whole way back home, like
pissed off.
And then we get into town. Yeah, we get into town, like we get into like downtown, like metro area, and it's just dead. And I'm like, well, let's pick up some food. And we go, and like all the dining area is empty. I'm like, what happened? They're like, we're closing down. We don't know when we'll open again. And we get in front of the TV, and she's like watching the news, and it looks like a scene from Contagion. And she's like, I think you made the right move. And I'm like,
you made the right move at the right time. So was it like that, I guess, up until the whole protests kind of occurred? It was pretty empty town.
Yeah, and they would like walk by. They would walk by the building, because we didn't live in a high rise, but we lived like right next to them. And so that was like, I would go down there and watch. And dude, like, if you got a little too close, like the police were skittish. Like I'm just standing there watching, like in the rain, and like I'm still like in my building technically, and you could see them like looking over their back, like watching you the whole time. So it was pretty intense.
Dang.
Sketched out. When I in that sort of thing, I mean, you kind of have to be if you're law enforcement, but at the same time, you can't overreact. You know, gotta let them protest. Gotta let them do the thing. Yeah. It's I bet that was a little scary, because you were a lot. We had a little protest across the bridge that occurred, I think. But it was like, very peaceful. Well, I mean, we live kind of, I mean, you know where we live. So, small town USA. So we didn't have a whole lot going on, luckily. But there wasn't no need for, I could definitely see the big cities kind of, being the place to do that sort of thing or make a statement, But
yeah,
I can't imagine kind of what you went through just watching it. You just stay in your house and hope it doesn't burn down.
Yeah, that was a big part of leaving out here, because it's like as soon as we got out here, I was like, it's as if nothing's happening. Like on like socially, like on a social justice level, or on a like pandemic level, I was just like, everybody's just doing their thing. Like, this is just normal. And it reminded me of a quote from a John Steinbeck book. I guess it was like in 1915. He was like, war is a city thing. And they were talking about like the World War I was going on. And he's like, out in the country, you don't know that there's a world war. But in the city,
They'll make sure you know. Think about how many, what we're kind of seeing as musicians, we're kind of seeing places open back up and want live music again and that sort of thing. But I can't even imagine a city like Charlotte, how many businesses just had to, probably could never open again after something like that.
Yeah. Not like, a lot did. I guess it's been so slow, and that's kind of the thing, is that like over the 2 years they never went, all right, it's done.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They just let it kept rolling, and it would slowly get better, but they would never say, all right, now we're moving into this. I mean, they had the phases or whatever, but like, so thinking back on 2 years, yeah, a lot of businesses did go under, and a lot of new businesses opened up just as because it was created a new new niche,
New opportunities.
Kind of needed it. Kind of needed some new stuff too sometimes.
a lot of takeout, yeah.
Alrighty, so how y'all want to roll this? Do y'all want to start closing up
Is
shop?
it legit or shit time?
Yeah, I think it's legit or shit time. So have you made it to the end of a cast where there's been a legit or shit?
No,
Okay, so legit or shit is just kind of a funny thing that really Nick came up with. I think what I did is I like pitched an idea to Nick, and then he drunkenly said legit, or what was it?
I said let's do legit or bullshit,
legit
and then
or
you just
bullshit.
shortened it to legit or shit.
Just legit or shit. But so I'm just basically what I do is it's I give a statement, and then you tell me if it's legit or shit, and we see who's the winner, you or Nick. Nick's not very good at this.
Although there was one episode where I got like every one of them right.
Yeah,
though.
I think there was one. I think that was the Scotty episode. Y'all were like on it
Yeah.
with each other, like y'all were nailing them.
is it facts or is
It's
it opinions?
facts.
It's facts.
According to the
Okay,
internet,
all right.
anyway.
Yeah, I do a little research on these because there's some of them I'm just like, no, there's no way this is real, and then I'm like, holy shit, it's real. And then some are made up.
I'd like
by
to
me.
think I'm well read. So
But anyway, so we'll go to the first legit or shit. An actual chicken lived without its head for 18 months. Legit or shit?
I'm gonna say legit too.
Yeah, that's legit. Y'all know this one. Do y'all know when it was? It was in 1945. His name was Mike.
Huh.
Mike the chicken. So evidently the chickens just don't have a whole lot of brain. So there were enough nerve endings left to keep it alive for a little bit longer.
That's probably a shitty last 18 months though.
Yeah, I'm sure it was terrible. Well, I guess I didn't read too far on it, but I think the farmer was like finding a way to feed this chicken.
oh yeah, it had to.
He was like finding it, like just somehow it lived. I don't know how, but anyways, the oldest shark can get up to 100 years old. Legit or shit?
Legit.
I'm gonna say shit. I'm gonna say they can live to be older.
Yeah, this one's shit. Nick's gonna pull ahead on this one. So evidently the Greenland shark can live up to 500 years.
Oh my god,
Up to 500 years.
it's a long time.
That's scary, actually.
That's about as old as Nancy Pelosi.
Yeah, almost. Okay, so number 3. Some turkeys can spontaneously impregnate themselves. Legit or shit?
I'm going legit.
I'm gonna say shit.
What'd you say, Ethan?
I think shit.
That one's legit too. Nick saw this article.
I just snuck it in.
So it's a process called parthenogenesis. I think I'm saying that right. Parthenogenesis.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, what happens is some of their embryos don't have to be fertilized to produce a turkey. So it's rare. It's not something that like happens all the time, but it has happened. Like they've produced turkeys asexually.
I could see it.
I think it's more of a like strictly a turkey thing. I don't think this is something like any bird can do. So, but that may be why it doesn't fly. Maybe it's not even a bird at all. I don't know. It's an alien. This is one y'all probably will both get. Human babies don't grow knee bones until they're about 3 years old. Legit or shit?
I'm gonna say legit.
Shit.
Did you say legit, Ethan? You said shit?
No, it's shit. Yeah.
This is legit.
Whoa.
So they don't have true knee bones like I think it's called a patella.
It's just
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just cartilage, and then at the age of 3, by that point, it is ossified into bone. So it's something that kind of grows with them, you know.
I think I need you to, before each time we do this, I think I need you to say, Nick's not very good at this.
Nick's not very good at this, and then he's gonna hit it.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is our last one. So some spiders can birth other spiders pregnant. So basically, their young is pregnant and being birthed.
Legit.
That's shit.
Oh, man.
Got you both. Got you both. Okay, but aphids do. So, so basically, aphids I think are all female, and the majority of them that are born pregnant.
Oh, okay.
So that's how they reproduce. I'm not sure exactly what happens or how that process
As
occurs.
soon as you're born, you're pregnant.
But
Jesus.
well, you imagine if spiders were, that would be terrible. That would be absolutely awful.
Yeah.
Like the baby spiders coming out are instantaneously pregnant and then just reproduce. Like at least aphids are little and tiny and shit. Ladybugs eat them.
Yeah.
But anyways, that was legit or shit.
Woo.
So I think Nick won that one, unfortunately, Ethan. But we'll get you back on the podcast to do
so.
that one again. We'll I'm sure you will win next time. Nick is typically not on his game. He had his Wheaties this morning.
Yeah. Maybe next time when it's postmodern
Yes,
American
yeah.
policy.
Well, this one ended up being a lot more kind of biology, it seemed.
Yeah.
Whereas, I
Reproductive.
think I've done a lot of stuff on animals, but I think like in the last one, I had some stuff that had to do with Saturn and shit. I don't know. I just kind of pull them where I find them. But anyways, so if you're still listening here, we have a Patreon now. So meaning you can join our Patreon and get all that fun content. We are still building more content for that. So stay tuned if you are already on our Patreon. What else we got? Also too, Ethan, what would be, if you had to say there was a place, if someone wanted to see your content, would it be Instagram? Would that be?
Yeah, Instagram's fine. I'm slow on it these days, but I'm still active. I check it like once a week, and I only post when something's cool on there now.
So all the cool stuff goes to Instagram. Is there any other places that you'd prefer people to go if they were checking you out or maybe wanted to hire you? Or
I mean, Instagram's a safe bet.
I'll post links, to like one of our YouTube videos that Ethan directed, our music
Great work.
videos,
He's done great
stuff
work.
like that. Like I said, and he said earlier in the pod, he's doing mostly animation now, but I don't know. Tell Ethan he looks nice and stuff like that. He might just make an exception for you. So
Yeah. Send really good music too. I like if someone sends me like the next best song.
if you're the next Billie Eilish, he will do your music video.
I would, yes, I would.
But also follow us at the Facebook group. It's just the Disarrangement, I believe.
the Disarrangement podcast.
Group, and we have a lot of fun on there too. Twitter is still slowly going somehow. That's Get Disarranged. What else?
I mean, we're on all the streaming platforms.
Yeah, we are on all your normal streaming platforms and all that fun stuff. So we appreciate you listening this far. And Ethan, what I want you to do for me, man, is we typically close this with a guest Get Disarranged. So basically you're going to say, "Hi, I'm Ethan," and get disarranged. And then that gives me
or if you want to say your business name, the Animist, you could do that too.
That might be cooler.
Yeah.
I'm the Animist.
Okay.
So whenever you're ready.
Yeah, oh, okay. I am the Animist and get disarranged.
Awesome.
Is that good?
Alrighty.
Well, thank you so much for coming on, Ethan, man. We really appreciate it, and just getting your insight on stuff that, that's a field that me and Blakely aren't fully in, but there's certain aspects of it that we're we kind of dive into a little bit. So it's neat to get like your perspective on stuff like that, especially since you've been in that kind of industry for so long and you're very talented at it. So we really appreciate you coming on and hanging out with us.
We definitely need to get you back on here. I feel like there's so much more conversation we can have. So.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's been,
we could even do like a themed topic or something with like a movies or something.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, and we hit on a lot of cool stuff too, and it was cool to kind of figure out you were kind of a little bit of a history buff in a way.
Yeah.
So, that's that sort of thing I've been kind of getting into more and more as I get older. Like I'm just finding more information, historical information.
Western Civ, pretty much.
Yeah, Western Civ. There you go. Maybe we'll have a Western Civ class with Ethan.
Yeah,
because that I think that can strike a lot of cool conversation. But anyways, so we really appreciate you listening, and again, we appreciate Ethan the Animist for being here in all his great glory, and stay tuned for all his cool stuff coming up because it sounds like he's got a lot of cool projects coming up. And I believe that's all we have for you today. So it's been 2 weeks. We'll see you in. Is this the one where we'll see you in 2 days?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Stay tuned because there's a special episode coming up for you. So, but yep. Again, we appreciate it. We'll see you in 2 days.
I love Lamp.
You love Lamp?
Right.
I love Lamp.
Prepare to get disarranged.